Apparitions by Robert Browning. Read for LibriVox.org by Roger Smith. Apparitions. Such a star bank of moss, till the May morn, blue ran the flash across, violets were born. Sky, what a scowl of cloud, till near and far, ray on ray split the shroud, splendid, a star. World, how it walled about, life with disgrace, till God's own smile came out, that was thy face. End of recording. This recording is in the public domain.
Ballad of the Primitive Jest by Andrew Lang. Read for LibriVox.org by Ike Sherr. What did the dark-haired Iberian laugh at before the tall blonde Aryan drove him into the corners of Europe? Brander Matthews. I am an ancient jest. Paleolithic man in his arboreal nest the sparks of fun would fan. My outline did he plan, and laughed like one possessed. 'Twas thus my course began. I am a merry jest. I am an early jest. Man delved and built and span, then wandered south and west the people's Aryan. I journeyed in the van. The Semites too confessed, from Beersheba to Dan. I am a merry jest. I am an ancient jest, through all the human clan, red, black, white, free, oppressed, hilarious I ran. I'm found in Lucian, in Poggio, and the rest. I'm dear to Mull and Nan. I am a merry jest. Envoy. Prince, you may storm and ban. Joe Millers are your pest. Suppress me, if you can. I am a merry jest. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Casa, Guidi, Windows, Part 1, by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Read for LibriVox.org by Arden. March 7, 2025. Casa, Guidi, Windows, Part 1. I heard last night a little child go singing, 'neath Casa Guidi windows by the church, "O bella liberta, O bella," stringing the same words still on notes he went in search, so high for, you concluded the upspringing of such a nimble bird to sky from perch must leave the whole bush in a tremble green, and that the heart of Italy must beat, while such a voice had leave to rise serene, twixt church and palace of a Florence street. A little child, too, who not long had been by mother's finger steadied on his feet, and still O bella liberta he sang. Then I thought, musing of the innumerous sweet songs which still for Italy outrang from older singers' lips who sang not thus, exultingly and purely, yet with pang, fast, sheathed in music, touched the heart of us, so finely that the pity scarcely pained. I thought how Philokaja led on others, bewailers for their Italy enchained, and how they called her childless among mothers, widow of empires, aye, and scarce refrained, cursing her beauty to her face as brothers, my ashamed sisters. Had she been less fair, she were less wretched. How, evoking so, from congregated wrong and heaped despair, of men and women writhing under blow, harrowed and hideous in a filthy lair, some personating image wherein woe was wrapped in beauty from offending much. They called it Cybele or Niobe, or laid it corpse-like on a bier for such, where all the world might drop for Italy, those cadenced tears which burn not where they touch. Juliet of nations, canst thou die as we? And was the violet crown that crowned thy head so overlarge, though new buds made it rough, it slept down and across thine eyelids dead? O sweet fair Juliet, of such songs enough, too many of such complaints. Behold instead, void at Verona, Juliet's marble trough. As void as that is, are all images men set between themselves and actual wrong, to catch the weight of pity, meet the stress of conscience, since 'tis easier to gaze long on mournful masks and sad effigies than on real live weak creatures crushed by strong. For me who stand in Italy today, where worthier poets stood and sang before. I kiss their footsteps, yet their words gainsay. I can but muse and hope upon this shore of golden Arno as it shoots away through Florence's heart beneath her bridges four, bent bridges seeming to strain off like bows, then tremble while the arrowy undertide shoots on and cleaves the marble as it goes, and strikes up palace walls on either side, and froths the cornice out in glittering rows, with doors and windows quaintly multiplied, and terrace sweeps and gazers upon all, by whom if flower or kerchief were thrown out, from any lattice there the same would fall, into the river underneath, no doubt, it runs so close and fast twixt wall and wall. How beautiful the mountains from without! In silence listen for the word said next. What word will men say, here where Giotto planted his campanile like an unperplexed? Fine question heavenward, touching the things granted, a noble people, who, being greatly vexed, in act and aspiration keep undaunted. What word will God say? Michel's night and day, and dawn and twilight wait in marble scorn, like dogs upon a dunghill, couched on clay, from whence the meta chain stamps outworn, the final putting off of all such sway, by all such hands, and freeing of the unborn, in Florence and the great world outside Florence. 300 years his patient statues wait, in that small chapel of the dim St. Lawrence. Day's eyes are breaking bold and passionate, over his shoulder, and will flash abhorrence. On darkness and with level looks meet fate, when once loose from that marble film of theirs, the night has wild dreams in her sleep, the dawn is haggard as the sleepless twilight wears a sort of horror, as the veil withdrawn twixt the artist's soul and works had left them heirs of speechless thoughts which would not quail nor fawn, of angers and contempts, of hope and love, for not without a meaning did he place the princely Urbino on the seat above, with everlasting shadow on his face, while these slow dawns and twilights disapprove the ashes of his long extinguished race, which never more shall clog the feet of men. I do believe, divinest Angelo, that winter hour in Via Larga, when they bade thee build a statue up in snow, and straight that marvel of thine art again dissolve beneath the sun's Italian glow, thine eyes dilated with the plastic passion, thawing too in drops of wounded manhood, since, to mock alike thine art and indignation, laughed at the palace window the new prince. Aha! This genius needs for exaltation, when all's said and however the proud may wince, a little marble from our princely minds. I do believe that hour thou laughedest too, for the whole sad world and for thy Florentines, after those few tears, which were only few, that as beneath the sun the grand white lines of thy snow statue trembled and withdrew, the head erect as Jove's, being palsied first, the eyelids flattened, the full brow turned blank, the right hand, raised but now as if it cursed, dropped a mere snowball, till the people sank, their voices, though a louder laughter burst, from the royal window. Thou couldst proudly thank God and the prince for promise and presage, and laugh the laugh back, I think verily, thine eyes being purged by tears of righteous rage, to read a wrong into a prophecy, and measure a true great man's heritage against the mere great duke's posterity. I think thy soul said then, I do not need a princedom and its quarries after all, for if I write, paint, carve a word indeed, on book or board or dust, on floor or wall, the same is kept of God who taketh heed, that not a letter of the meaning fall, or ere it touch and teach his world's deep heart. Outlasting therefore all your lordship, sir, so keep your stone, beseech you, for your part, to cover up your grave place and refer the proper titles. I live by my art. The thought I threw into this snow shall stir this gazing people when their gaze is done, and the tradition of your act and mine, when all the snow is melted in the sun, shall gather up for unborn men a sign of what is the true princedom. I and none shall laugh that day except the drunk with wine. Amen, great Angelo, the day's at hand. If many laugh not on it, shall we weep? Much more we must not, let us understand, through rhymers sonneteering in their sleep, and archaists mumbling dry bones up the land, and sketchers lauding ruined towns a heap, through all that drowsy hum of voices smooth, the hopeful bird mounts caroling from brake, the hopeful child, but leaps to catch his growth, sings open-eyed for liberty's sweet sake. And I, a singer also from my youth, prefer to sing with these who are awake, with birds, with babes, with men who will not fear the baptism of the holy morning dew. And many of such wakers now are here, complete in their anointed manhood, who will greatly dare and greatlier persevere. Then join those old thin voices with my new, and sigh for Italy with some safe sigh, cooped up in music twixt an O and ah. Nay, hand in hand with that young child will I go singing rather Bella Liberta than with those poets croon the dead or cry Setum in bella fossi Italia. Less wretched if less fair, perhaps a truth is so far plain in this, that Italy, long trammelled with the purple of her youth, against her age's ripe activity, sits still upon her tombs without death's ruth, but also without life's brave energy. Now tell us, what is Italy, men ask, and others answer, Virgil, Cicero, Catullus, Caesar. What beside, to task the memory closer, why Boccaccio, Dante, Petrarca? And if still the flask appears to yield its wine by drops too slow, Angelo, Raphael, Pergolese, all whose strong hearts beat through stone, or charged again the paints with fire souls electrical, or broke up heaven for music, what more then? Why then, no more. The chaplet's last beads fall, in naming the last saintship within ken, and after that none prayeth in the land. Alas, this Italy has too long swept heroic ashes up for hourglass sand of her own past, impassioned nympholept, consenting to be nailed here by the hand to the very bay-tree under which she stepped, a queen of old, and plucked a leafy branch, and licensing the world too long indeed to use her broad phylacteries to staunch and stop her bloody lips. She takes no heed how one clear word would draw an avalanche of living suns around her to succeed the vanished generations. Can she count these oil eaters with large live mobile mouths, agape for macaroni, and the amount of consecrated heroes of her South's bright rosary, the pitcher at the fount, the gift of gods being broken, she much loathes to let the ground leaves of the place confer a natural bowl. So henceforth she would seem no nation but the poet's pensioner, with alms from every land of song and dream, while I her pipers sadly pipe of her, until their proper breaths in that extreme of sighing split the reed on which they played, of which no more, but never say no more to Italy's life. Her memories undismayed still argue evermore. Her graves implore her future to be strong and not afraid. Her very statues send their looks before. We do not serve the dead, the past is past. God lives and lifts his glorious mornings up before the eyes of men awake at last, who put away the meats they used to sup, and down upon the dust of earth outcast the dregs remaining of the ancient cup, then turn to wakeful prayer and worthy at the dead upon their awful vantage ground. The sun not in their faces shall abstract no more our strength. We will not be discrowned as guardians of their crowns, nor deign transact a barter of the present for a sound of good so counted in the foregone days. O dead, ye shall no longer cling to us, but rigid hands of desiccating praise, and drag us backward by the garment thus, to stand and lodge you in long-drawn virelays. We will not henceforth be oblivious of our own lives because ye lived before, nor of our acts because ye acted well. We thank you that ye first unlatched the door, but will not make it inaccessible by thinkings on the threshold any more. We hurry onward to extinguish hell, with our fresh souls, our younger hope, and God's maturity of purpose. Soon shall we die also, and that then our periods of life may round themselves to memory, as smoothly as on our graves the burial sods. We now must look to it to excel as ye, and bear our ages far unlimited, by the last mind mark, so to be invoked by future generations as their dead. 'Tis true that when the dust of death has choked a great man's voice, the common words he said turn oracles, the common thoughts he yoked like horses draw like griffins. This is true and acceptable. I, too, should desire, when men make record with the flowers they strew. Savonarola's soul went out in fire upon our Grand Duke's piazza, and burned through a moment first, or ere he did expire, the veil betwixt the right and wrong, and showed how near God sat and judged the judges there, upon the self-same pavement overstrewed, to cast my violets with as reverent care, and prove that all the winters which have snowed cannot snow out the scent from stones in air. Of a sincere man's virtues, this was he, Savonarola, who, while Peter sank, with his whole boatload called courageously, Wake Christ, who, having tried the tank of old church waters used for baptistry, ere Luther came to spill them, swore they stank, who also by a princely deathbed cried, Loose, Florence, or God will not loose thy soul, then fell back the magnificent and died beneath the starlock shooting from the cowl, which turned to wormwood bitterness the wide, deep sea of his ambitions. It were foul to grudge Savonarola and the rest their violets, rather pay them quick and fresh. The emphasis of death makes manifest the eloquence of action in our flesh, and men who living were but dimly guessed, when once free from their life's entangled mesh, shall their full length in graves, or oft indeed, exaggerate their stature in the flat, to noble admirations which exceed most nobly, yet will calculate in that, but accurately. We who are the seed of buried creatures, if we turned and spat upon our antecedents, we were vile. Bring violets rather, if these had not want, there for long could we hope to walk our mile. Therefore bring violets, yet if we self-balked, stand still, a-strewing violets all the while, these moved in vain, of whom we have vainly taught. So rise up henceforth with a cheerful smile, and having strewn the violets, reap the corn, and having reaped and garnered, bring the plough, and draw new furrows neath the healthy morn, and plant the great hereafter in this now. Of old 'twas so, how step by step was worn, as each man gained on each securely, how each by his own strength sought his own ideal, the ultimate perfection leaning bright from out the sun and stars to blessed Idyll, an earnest search of all for fair and right, through doubtful forms by earth accounted real. Because old Jubal blew into delight the souls of men with clear-piped melodies, if youthful Asaph were content at most to draw from Jubal's grave with listening eyes traditionary music's floating ghost into the grass-grown silence, were it wise? And was it not wiser, Jubal's breath being lost, that Miriam clashed her cymbals to surprise the sun between her white arms flung apart, with new glad golden sounds, that David strings, or float his hand with music from his heart? So harmony grows full from many springs, and happy accident turns holy art. You enter, in your Florence wanderings, the church of Saint Maria Novella, pass the left stair, where at playtime Machiavel saw one with set fair face as in a glass, dressed out against the fear of death and hell, rustling her silks in pauses of the mass, to keep the thought off how her husband fell, when she left home, stark dead across her feet. The stair leads up to what the Orgagnos save of Dante's demons. You, in passing it, ascend the right stair from the farther nave, to muse in a small chapel scarcely lit by Cimabue's Virgin, bright and brave. That picture was accounted mark of old. A king stood bare before its sovereign grace. A reverent people shouted to behold the picture, not the king, and even the place, containing such a miracle grew bold. Name the glad Borgo from that beauteous face, which thrilled the artist after work to think his own ideal merry smile should stand so very near him, he within the brink of all that glory let in by his hand, with too divine a rashness. Yet none shrink who come to gaze here now, albeit 'twas planned sublimely in the thought's simplicity, the lady throned in imperial state, mine's only the young babe upon her knee, while sidelong angels bear the royal weight, prostrated meekly, smiling tenderly, oblivion of their wings, the child thereat, stretching its hand like God, if any should, because of some stiff draperies and loose joints, gaze scorn down from the heights of Raphael Hood. On Cimabue's picture, heaven anoints the head of no such critic, and his blood the poet's curse strikes full on and appoints to ague and cold spasms forevermore. A noble picture, worthy of the shout, wherewith along the streets the people bore its cherub faces which the sun threw out, until they stooped and entered the church door. Yet rightly was young Giotto talked about, whom Cimabue found among the sheep, and knew as gods know gods, and carried home, to paint the things he had painted with a deep and fuller insight, and so overcome his chapel lady with a heavenlier sweep of light. For thus we mount into the sum of great things known or acted. I hold, too, that Cimabue smiled upon the lad at the first stroke which passed what he could do, or else his virgin smile had never had such sweetness in it. All great men who foreknew their heirs in art, for art's sake have been glad, and bent their old white heads as if uncrowned, fanatics of their pure ideals still, far more than of their triumphs, which were found with some less vehement struggle of the will. If old Margaritone trembled, swooned, and died despairing at the open sill of other men's achievements, who achieved by loving art beyond the master, he was old Margaritone, and conceived never at first youth and most ecstasy, a virgin like that dream of one which heaved the death sigh from his heart. If wistfully Margaritone sickened at the smell of Cimabue's laurel, let him go, for Cimabue stood up very well, in spite of Giotto's and Angelico. The artist saint kept smiling in his cell, the smile with which he welcomed the sweet, slow embrake of angels, whitening through the dim, that he might paint them, while the sudden sense of Raphael's future was revealed to him, by force of his own fair work's competence. The same blue waters where the dolphins swim suggest the tridents. Through the blue immense, strike out all swimmers, cling not in the way of one another, so to sink, but learn the strong man's impulse, catch the freshening spray he throws up in his motions, and discern by his clear westering eye the time of day. Thou, God, hast set us worthy gifts to earn, besides thy heaven and thee. And when I say there's room here for the weakest man alive to live and die, there's room too, I repeat, for all the strongest to live well and strive their own way by their individual heat, like some new bee swarm leaving the old hive, despite the wax which tempts so violet sweet. Then let the living live, the dead retain their grave cold flowers, though honour's best supplied by bringing actions to prove theirs not vain. Cold graves, we say, it shall be testified that living men who burn in heart and brain without the dead were colder. If we tried to sink the past beneath our feet, be sure the future would not stand. Precipitate this old roof from the shrine, and, insecure, the nesting swallows fly off, mate from mate. How scant the gardens if the graves were fewer! The tall green poplars grew no longer straight, whose tops not looked to Troy. Would any fight for Athens and not swear by Marathon? Who dared build temples without tombs in sight, or live without some dead man's benison, or seek truth, hope for good, and strive for right? If looking up he saw not in the sun some angel of the martyrs all day long, standing and waiting, your last rhythm will need your earliest keynote. Could I sing this song, if my dead masters had not taken heed to help the heavens and earth to make me strong? As thee when ever will find out some reed, and touch it to such issues as belong to such a frail thing. None may grudge the dead libations from full cups, unless we choose to look back to the hills behind us spread, the plains before us sadden and confuse. If orphaned, we are disinherited. I would but turn these lachrymals to use, and pour fresh oil in from the olive grove, to furnish them as new lamps. Shall I say what made my heart beat with exulting love a few weeks back? The day was such a day as Florence owes the sun. The sky above its weight upon the mountains seemed to lay, and palpitate in glory like a dove who has flown too fast, full-hearted. Take away the image, for the heart of man beat higher that day in Florence, flooding all her streets and piazzas with a tumult and desire. The people with accumulated heats and faces turned one way, as if one fire both drew and flushed them, left their ancient beats, and went up toward the palace PT wall to thank their Grand Duke who, not quite of course, had graciously permitted at their call the citizens to use their civic force to guard their civic homes. So, one and all, the Tuscan cities streamed up to the source of this new good at Florence, taking it as good so far, presageful of more good, the first torch of Italian freedom lit, to toss in the next tiger's face who should approach too near them in a greedy fit, the first pulse of an even flow of blood, to prove the level of Italian veins, towards rights perceived and granted. How we gazed from Casa Guidi windows while, in trains of orderly procession, banners raised, and intermittent bursts of martial strains, which died upon the shout, as if amazed by gladness beyond music, they passed on. The magistracy with insignia passed, and all the people shouted in the sun, and all the thousand windows which had cast a ripple of silks in blue and scarlet down, as if the houses overflowed at last, seemed growing larger with fair heads and eyes. The lawyers passed, and still arose the shout, and hands broke from the windows to surprise those grave, calm brows with bay tree leaves thrown out. The priesthood passed, the friars were worldly wise, keen sidelong glances from their beards about the street to see who shouted. Many a monk, who takes a long rope in the waist, was there, whereat the popular exultation drunk, with indrawn vivas the whole sunny air, while through the murmuring windows rose and sunk a cloud of kerchiefed hands. The church makes fair her welcome in the new pope's name. Ensued the black sign of the martyrs, name no name, but count the graves in silence. Next reviewed the artists, next the trades, and after came the people, flag and sign, and rights is good. And very loud the shout was for that same motto, Il Popolo, Il Popolo. The word means dukedom, empire, majesty, and kings in such an hour might read it so. And next, with banners each in his degree, deputed representatives a row of every separate state of Tuscany. Sienna's she-wolf, bristling on the fold of the first flag, preceded Pisa's hair, and Mossa's lion floated calm in gold, Pienza's following with his silver stare. Arezzo's steed pranced clear from bridle hold, and well might shout our Florence, greeting there these and more brethren. Last the world had sent the various children of her teeming flanks, Greeks, English, French, as if to a parliament of lovers of her Italy in ranks, each bearing its land's symbol reverent, at which the stones seemed breaking into thanks and rattling up the sky. Such sounds in proof arose, the very house walls seemed to bend, the very windows up from door to roof flashed out a rapture of bright heads to men, with passionate looks the gestures whirling off, a hurricane of leaves. 3 hours did end, while all these passed, and ever in the crowd, rude men, unconscious of the tears that kept their beards moist, shouted, some few laughed aloud, and none asked any why they laughed and wept. Friends kissed each other's cheeks, and foes long vowed, more warmly did it. 2 months babies leapt, right upward in their mother's arms, whose black, wide glittering eyes looked elsewhere. Lovers pressed, each before either, neither glancing back, and peasant maidens smoothly tired and tressed, forgot to finger on their throats the slack, great pearl strings, while old blind men would not rest, but pattered with their staves and slid their shoes along the stones, and smiled as if they saw. O heaven, I think that day had noble use among God's days. So near stood right and law, both mutually forborne. Law would not bruise, nor right deny, and each in reverent awe honored the other, and if, nevertheless, that good day's sun delivered to the vines no charter, and the liberal duke's success did scarce exceed a Guelph's or Ghibelline's, in any special actual righteousness of what that day he granted, still the signs are good and full of promise, we must say. When multitudes approach their kings with prayers, and kings concede their people's right to pray, both in one sunshine, griefs are not despairs, so uttered, nor can royal claims dismay, when men from humble homes and ducal chairs hate wrong together. It was well to view those banners ruffled in a ruler's face, inscribed, live freedom, union, and all true, brave patriots who are aided by God's grace. Nor was it ill when Leopoldo drew his little children to the window place. He stood in at the PT to suggest they too should govern as the people willed. What a cry rose then! Some, who saw the best, declared his eyes filled up and overfilled with good warm human tears which unrepressed ran down. Unlike his face, the forehead's build has no capacious genius, yet perhaps sufficient comprehension, mild and sad, and careful nobly, not with care that wraps self-loving hearts, to stifle and make mad, but careful with the care that shuns a lapse of faith and duty, studious not to add a burden in the gathering of a gain. And so God save the Duke, I say with those who that day shouted it, and while Dukes reign, may all wear in the visible overflows of spirit such a look of careful pain, for God must love it better than repose. And all the people who went up to let their hearts out to that Duke, as has been told, where guess ye that the living people met, kept tryst, formed ranks, chose leaders, first unrolled their banners. In the loggia, where is set Cellini's godlike Perseus, bronze or gold, how name the metal when the statue flanks its soul so in your eyes, with brow and sword, superbly calm as all opposing things, slain with the Gorgon, were no more abhorred, since ended. No, the people sought no wings from Perseus in the loggia, nor implored an inspiration in the place beside, from that dim bust of Brutus, jagged and grand, where Buonarroti passionately tried, from out the close-clenched marble to demand the head of Rome's sublimest homicide, then dropped the quivering mallet from his hand, despairing he could find no model stuff of Brutus in all Florence where he found the gods and gladiators thick enough, nor there the people chose still holier ground. The people who are simple, blind, and rough know their own angels after looking round. Whom chose they then? Where met they? On the stone, called Dante's, a plain flat stone scarce discerned from others in the pavement, whereupon he used to bring his quiet chair out, turned to Brunelleschi's church, and pour alone the lava of his spirit when it burned. It is not cold today, O passionate. Poor Dante, who, a banished Florentine, did sit austere at banquets of the great, and muse upon this far-off stone of thine, and think how oft some passer used to wait a moment in the golden day's decline, with good night, dearest Dante, well, good night. I muse now, Dante, and think verily, though chapelled in the byway out of sight, Ravenna's bones would thrill with ecstasy, couldst know thy favourite stones elected right, as tryst place for thy Tuscans to foresee their earliest charters from. Good night, good morn. Henceforward, Dante, now my soul is sure that thine is better comforted of scorn, and looks down earthward in completer cure, than when, in Santa Croce church forlorn, of any corpse, the architect and hewer did pile the empty marbles as thy tomb. For now thou art no longer exiled, now, best honoured, we salute thee who art come back to the old stone with a softer brow than Giotto drew upon the wall, for some good lovers of our age to track and plough their way to, through time's ordures stratified, and startle broad awake into the dull Bargello chamber. Now thou art mother-eyed. Now Beatrix may leap up glad to call thy first smile, even in heaven and at her side, like that which, 9 years old, looked beautiful at May game. What do I say? I only meant that tender Dante loved his Florence well, while Florence now to love him is content. And mark ye that the piercingest sweet smell of love's dear incense by the living sent, to find the dead, is not accessible to lazy livers, no narcotic, not swung in a censer to a sleepy tune, but trod out in the morning air by hot, quick spirits who tread firm to ends foreshown, and use the name of greatness unforgot, to meditate what greatness may be done. For Dante sits in heaven and ye stand here, and more remains for doing, all must feel, than trysting on his stone from year to year, to shift processions, civic toe to heel. The town's thanks to the piety, are ye freer? For what was felt that day, a chariot wheel may spin fast, yet the chariot never roll. But if that day suggested something good, and bettered with one purpose soul by soul, better means freer, a land's brotherhood is most puissant. Men upon the whole are what they can be, nations what they would. Will therefore to be strong, thou Italy, will to be noble, Austrian Metternich, can fix no yoke unless the neck agree. And thine is like the lion's when the thick do shudder from it, and no man would be the stroker of his mane, much less would prick his nostril with a reed, when nations roar, like lions, who shall tame them and defraud of the due pasture by the river shore. Roar, therefore, shake your dewlaps dry abroad, The amphitheater with open door leads back upon the benches who applaud the last spear thruster. Yet the heavens forbid that we should call on passion to confront the brutal with the brutal, and amid this ripening world suggest a lion hunt, and lion's vengeance for the wrongs men did and do now, though the spears are getting blunt. We only call because the sight and proof of lion strength hurts nothing, and to show a lion heart and measure paw with hoof helps something even, and will instruct a foe, as well as the onslaught how to stand aloof, or else the world gets past the mere brute blow, or given or taken. Children use the fist until they are of age to use the brain, and so we needed Caesars to assist man's justice, and Napoleons to explain God's counsel when a point was nearly missed, until our generations should attain Christ's stature nearer. Not that we, alas, attain already, but a single inch will raise to look down on the swordsman's pass. As nightly roll on the cowards flinch, and after chloroform and ether gas, we find out slowly what the bee and finch have ready found through nature's lamp in each, how to our races we may justify our individual claims, and as we reach our own grapes, bend the top vines to supply the children's uses, how to fill a breach with olive branches, how to quench a lie with truth, and smite a foe upon the cheek with Christ's most conquering kiss. Why, these are things worth a great nation's finding to prove weak the glorious arms of military kings, and so with wide embrace my England seek to stifle the bad heat and flickerings of this world's false and nearly expended fire. Draw palpitating arrows to the wood, and twang abroad thy high hopes and thy higher resolves from that most virtuous altitude, till nations shall unconsciously aspire by looking up to thee, and learn that good and glory are not different. Announce law by freedom, exalt chivalry by peace, instruct how clear calm eyes can overawe, and how pure hands, stretched simply to release a bond slave, will not need a sword to draw, to be held dreadful. O my England, crease thy purple with no alien agonies, no struggles toward encroachment, no vile war. Disband thy captains, change thy victories. Be henceforth prosperous as the angels are, helping, not humbling, drums and battle cries. Go out in music of the morning star, and soon we shall have thinkers in the place of fighters, each found able as a man to strike electric influence through a race, unstayed by city wall and barbican. The poet shall look grander in the face than even of old, when he of Greece began to sing that Achillean wrath which slew so many heroes, seeing he shall treat the deeds of souls heroic toward the true, the oracles of life, previsions sweet, and awful like divine swans gliding through white arms of Ledas, which will leave the heat of their escaping godship to endue the human medium with a heavenly flush. Meanwhile, in this same Italy we want not popular passion to arise and crush, but popular conscience, which may covenant for what it knows, concede without a blush. To grant the civic guard is not to grant the civic spirit, living and awake. Those lappets on your shoulders, citizens, your eyes strain after sideways till they ache, while still, in admirations and amens, the crowd comes up on festa days to take the great sight in, or not intelligence, not courage even, alas, if not the sign of something very noble, they are not. For every day ye dress your sallow kine with fringes down their cheeks, though unbesought. They low their heavy heads and drag the wine, and bear the wooden yoke as they were taught the first day. What ye want is light, indeed, not sunlight. Ye may well look up surprised to those unfathomable heavens that feed your purple hills, but God's light organized, and some high soul, crowned capable to lead the conscious people, conscious and advised. For if we lift a people like mere clay, it falls the same. We want thee, O unfound and sovereign teacher. If thy beard be grey or black, we bid thee rise up from the ground, and speak the word God giveth thee to say, inspiring into all this people round. Instead of passion, thought, which pioneers, all generous passion purifies from sin, and strikes the hour for. Rise up, teacher, here's a crowd to make a nation. Best begin by making each a man, till all be peers of earth's true patriots and pure martyrs in, knowing and daring. Best unbar the doors, which Peter's heirs keep locked so over close. They only let the mice across the floors, while every churchman dangles as he goes the great key at his girdle and abhors, in Christ's name meekly. Open wide the house, concede the entrance with Christ's liberal mind, and set the tables with his wine and bread. What commune in both kinds, in every kind, wine, wafer, love, hope, truth, unlimited, nothing kept back. For when a man is blind to starlight, will he see the roses red? A bondsman shivering at a Jesuit's foot, Vi, mea culpa, is not like to stand, a freedman at a despot's in dispute, his titles by the balance in his hand, weighing them suo jure. Tend the root, if careful of the branches, and expand the inner souls of men before you strive for civic heroes. But the teacher, where, from all these crowded faces all alive, eyes of their own lids flashing themselves bare, and brows that with a mobile life contrive a deeper shadow, may we in no wise dare to put a finger out and touch a man, and cry, this is the leader. What all these? Broad heads, black eyes, yet not a soul that ran from God down with a message, all to please. The Donna waving measures with her fan, and not the judgment angel on his knees. The trumpet just an inch off from his lips, who when he breathes next will put out the sun. Yet mankind's self were foundered in eclipse, if lacking doers with great works to be done. And lo, the startled earth already dips back into light, a better day's begun. And soon this leader, teacher, will stand plain, and build the golden pipes and synthesize this people organ for our holy strain. We hold this hope, and still in all these eyes go sounding for the deep look which shall drain, suffuse thought into channeled enterprise. Where is the teacher? What now may he do, who shall do greatly? Doth he gird his waist with a monk's robe like Luther, or pursue the goat like Tell, or dry his nets in haste, like Masaniello when the sky was blue? Keep house like other peasants, with inlaced, bare brawny arms about a favorite child, and meditative looks beyond the door, but not to mark the kidling's teeth have filed. The green shoots of his vine which last year bore full 20 bunches, or on triple piled, thrown velvet sit at ease to bless the poor, like other pontiffs in the poorest's name. The old tiara keeps itself aslope upon his steady brows, which, all the same, bend mildly to permit the people's hope. Whatever hand shall grasp this oriflamme, whatever man, last peasant or first pope, seeking to free his country, shall appear, teach, lead, strike fire into the masses, fill these empty bladders with fine air, and sphere these wills into a unity of will, and make of Italy a nation dear, and blessed be that man. The heavens shall kill, no leaf the earth lets grow for him, and death shall cast him back upon the lap of life, to live more surely in a clarion breath of hero music. Brutus with the knife, Rienzi with the fasces, throb beneath Rome's stones, and more who threw away joy's fife, like Pallas, that the beauty of their souls might ever shine untroubled and entire. But if it can be true that he who rolls the church's thunders will reserve her fire for only light from Eucharistic bowls, will pour new life for nations that expire, and rend the scarlet of his papal vest to gird the weak loins of his countrymen, I hold that he surpasses all the rest of Romans, heroes, patriots, and that when he sat down on the throne he dispossessed the first graves of some glory. See again, this country's saving is a glorious thing, and if a common man achieved this, well, say a rich man did, excellent, a king, that grows sublime, a priest, improbable, a pope. Ah, there we stop, and cannot bring our faith up to the leap with history's bell, so heavy round the neck of it, albeit we fain would grant the possibility, for thy sake, Pio Nono. Stretch thy feet. In that case, I will kiss them reverently, as any pilgrim to the papal seat, and such proved possible. Thy throne to me shall seem as holy a place as Pellico's Venetian dungeon, or as Spielberg's grate, at which the Lombard woman hung the rose of her sweet soul by its own dewy weight. to feel the dungeon round her sunshine close, and pining so, died early, yet too late, for what she suffered. Yea, I will not choose, betwixt thy throne, Pope Pius, and the spot, marked red forever, spite of rains and dews, where two fell riddled by the Austrian shot, the brothers Bandiera, who accuse, with one same mother voice and face, that what they speak may be invincible, the sins of earth's tormentors before God the just, until the unconscious thunderbolt begins to loosen in his grasp. And yet we must beware and mark the natural kiths and kins of circumstance and office and distrust, the rich man reasoning in a poor man's hut, the poet who neglects pure truth to prove statistic fact, the child who leaves a rut for a smoother road, the priest who vows his glove, exhales no grace, the prince who walks afoot, the woman who has sworn she will not love, in this 9th Pius and 7th Gregory's chair, with Andrea Doria's forehead, count what goes, to making up a pope, before he wear that triple crown. We pass the worldwide throes, which went to make the popedom, the despair of free men, good men, wise men, the dread shows of women's faces by the faggot's flash, tossed out to the minutest stir and throb of the white lips, the least tremble of a lash, to glut the red stare of a licensed mob, the short mad cries down oubliettes and plash, so horribly far off, priests trained to rob, and kings that, like encouraged nightmares, sat on nations' hearts most heavily distressed, but monstrous sights and apothegms of fate. We pass these things, because the times are pressed, with necessary charges of the weight of all this sin, and Calvin, for the rest, made bold to burn Servetus, Manohar. And so do churches, which is all we mean, to bring to proof in any register of theological fat, kind, and lean. So drive them back into the pens, refer old sins, but poor point, quotha, and I ween, entirely to the old times, nor ever ask why this preponderant, infallible, pure church could set her chimes most loudly then, just then, most jubilant, precisely then, when mankind stood in crimes, full heart deep, and heaven's judgments were not scant. Inquire still less what signifies a church of perfect inspiration and pure laws, who burns the first man with a brimstone torch, and grinds the second bone by bone, because the times, forsooth, are used to rack and scorch. What is a holy church unless she awes the times down from their sins? Did Christ elect such amiable times to come and teach love to and mercy, the whole world were wrecked if every mere great man who lives to reach a little leaf of popular respect attain not simply by some special breach in the age's customs, by some precedents in thought and act, which having proved him higher than those he lived with, proved his competence in helping them to wonder and aspire. My words are guiltless of the bigot's sense. My soul has fire to mingle with the fire of all these souls, within or out of doors, of Rome's church or another. I believe in one priest, in one temple with its floors of shining jasper gloomed at morn and eve, by countless knees of earnest auditors, and crystal walls too lucid to perceive, that none may take the measure of the place, and say, so far the porphyry, then the flint. To this mark mercy goes, and there ends grace, though still the permeable crystals hint at some white starry distance bathed in space. I feel how nature's ice crusts keep the dint of under springs of silent deity. I hold the articulated gospels which show Christ among us crucified on tree. I love all who love truth, if poor or rich, in what they have won of truth possessively. No altars and no hands defiled with pitch shall scare me off, but I will pray and eat with all these, taking leave to choose my ewers, and say at last, your visible churches cheat their inward types, and if a church assures of standing without failure and defeat, the same both fails and lies, to leave which lures of wider subject through past years. Behold, we come back from the popedom to the Pope, to ponder what he must be ere we are bold for what he may be, with our heavy hope, to trust upon his soul, so fold by fold, explore this mummy in the priestly cope, transmitted through the darks of time, to catch the man within the wrappage, and discern how he, an honest man, upon the watch, full 50 years for what a man may learn, contrived to get just there, with what a snatch of old world oboli he had to earn the passage through, with what a drowsy sop to drench the busy barkings of his brain, what ghosts of pale tradition, wreathed with hop, against wakeful thought, he had to entertain, for heavenly visions, and consent to stop the clock at noon, and let the hour remain, without vain windings up, and violate, against all chimings from the belfry, lo, from every given pope you must abate, albeit you love him, some things, good you know, which every given heretic you hate, assumes for his, as being plainly so. A pope must hold by popes a little, yes, by councils from Nicaea up to Trent, by hierocratic empire, more or less, irresponsible to men, he must resent each man's particular conscience and repress inquiry, meditation, argument, as tyrant's faction. Also, he must not love truth too dangerously, but prefer the interests of the church, because a blot is better than a rent in Miniver. Submit to see the people swallow hot husk porridge, which his chartered churchmen stir, quoting the only true God's epigraph, "Feed my lambs, Peter," must consent to sit, attesting with his pastoral ring and staff, to such a picture of Our Lady hit off well by artist angels, though not half as fair as Giotto would have painted it, to such a vial where a dead man's blood runs yearly warm beneath a churchman's finger, to such a holy house of stone and wood, whereof a cloud of angels was the bringer, from Bethlehem to Loreto, were it good for any pope on earth to be a flinger of stones against these high-niched counterfeits. Apostates only are iconoclasts. He dares not say, while this false thing abets, that true thing, this is false. He keeps his fasts and prayers, as prayer and fast were silver frets, to change a note upon a string that lasts, and make a lie a virtue. Now, if he did more than this, higher hoped, and braver dared, I think he were a pope in jeopardy, or no pope rather, for his truth had barred the vaulting of his life, and certainly, if he do only this, mankind's regard moves on from him at once, to seek some new teacher and leader. He is good and great, according to the deeds a pope can do, most liberal, save those bonds, affectionate, as princes may be, and as priests are, true, but only the ninth pious after 8, when all's praised most, at best and hopefullest, he's pope. We want a man, his heart beats warm, but like the prince enchanted to the waist, he sits in stone and hardens by a charm, into the marble of his throne high placed. Mild benediction waves his saintly arm, so good, but what we want's a perfect man, complete and all alive, half travertine, half suits our need, and ill subserves our plan. Feet, knees, nerves, sinews, energies divine, were never yet too much for men who ran in such hard ways as must be this of thine. Deliverer whom we seek, whoe'er thou art, pope, prince, or peasant, if indeed the first, the noblest therefore, since the heroic heart within thee must be great enough to burst those trammels buckling to the baser part, thy saintly peers in Rome, who crossed and cursed with the same finger. Come, appear, be found, if pope or peasant, come, we hear the cock, the courtier of the mountains when first crowned, with golden dawn, and orient glories flock, to meet the sun upon the highest ground. Take voice and work, we wait to hear thee knock, at some one of our Florentine 9 gates, on each of which was imaged a sublime face of a Tuscan genius, which, for hate's and love's sake, both, are Florence in her prime, turned boldly on all comers to her states, as heroes turn their shields in antique time, emblazoned with honorable acts, and though the gates are blank now of such images, and Petrarch looks no more from Niccolo toward dear Arezzo twixt the acacia trees, nor Dante from Gate Gallo, still we know, despite the raising of the blazon rays, remains the consecration of the shield. The dead heroic faces will start out on all these gates if foes should take the field, and bend sublimely at the earliest shout, with living heroes who will scorn to yield a hair's breadth even, when gazing round about, they find in what a glorious company they fight the foes of Florence. Who will grudge his one poor life, when that great man we see has given 500 years, the world being judge, to help the glory of his Italy, who, born the fair side of the Alps, will budge, when Dante stays, when Ariosto stays, when Petrarch stays forever. Ye bring swords, my Tuscans, I, if wanted in this haze, bring swords, but first bring souls, bring thoughts and words, unrested by a tear of yesterdays, yet awful by its wrong, and cut these cords, and mow this green lush falseness to the roots, and shut the mouth of hell below the swathe. And if you can bring songs too, let the lutes recoverable music softly bathe some poet's hand, that through all bursts and brutes of popular passion, all unripe and wraith, convictions of the popular intellect, ye may not lack a finger up the air, enunciative, reproving, pure, erect, to show which way your first ideal bear, the whiteness of its wings when, sorely pet, by falcons on your wrists, it unaware arose up overhead and out of sight. Meanwhile, let all the far ends of the world breathe back the deep breath of their old delight, to swell the Italian banner just unfurled. Help, lands of Europe, for if Austria fight, the drums will bar your slumber, had ye curled the laurel for your 1,000 artists' brows. If these Italian hands have planted none, can any sit down idle in the house, nor hear appeals from Buonarroti's stone, and Raphael's canvas, rousing and to rouse? Where's Poussin's master, Gallic Avignon, bred Laura, and Vaucluse's fount has stirred the heart of France too strongly, as it lets its little stream out, like a wizard's bird, which bounds upon its emerald wing and wets the rocks on each side, that she should not gird her loins with Charlemagne's sword when foes beset the country of her Petrarch. Spain may well be minded how from Italy she caught, to mingle with her tingling Moorish bell, a fuller cadence and a subtler thought. And even the New World, the receptacle of free men, may send glad men, as it ought, to greet Vespucci Amerigo's door, while England claims, by trump of poetry, Verona, Venice, the Ravenna shore, and dearer holds John Milton's Fiesole than Langland's Malvern with the stars in flower. And Vallombrosa we too went to see, last June, beloved companion, where sublime the mountains live in holy families, and these slow pine woods ever climb and climb, half up their breasts, just stagger as they seize some grey crag, drop back with it many a time, and straggle blindly down the precipice. The Vallombrosan brooks were strewn as thick, that June day, knee-deep with dead beechen leaves, as Milton saw them ere his heart grew sick, and his eyes blind. I think the monks and beefs are all the same too, scarce have they changed the wick on good St. Gualbert's altar, which receives the convent's pilgrims, and the pool in front, wherein the hill-stream trout are cast, to wait the beatific vision, and the grunt, used at refectory, keeps its weedy state, to baffle saintly abbots who would count the fish across their breviary, nor bait the measure of their steps. O waterfalls and forests, sound and silence, mountains bare, that leap up peak by peak and catch the palls of purple and silver mist to rend and share with one another at electric calls of life in these sunbeams, till we cannot dare fix your shapes, count your number. We must think your beauty and your glory help to fill the cup of Milton's soul so to the brink. He nevermore was thirsty when God's will had shattered to his sense the last chain link by which he had drawn from nature's visible the fresh well water. Satisfied by this, he sang of Adam's paradise and smiled, remembering Vallombrosa. Therefore is the place divine to English man and child, and pilgrims leave their souls here in a kiss. For Italy's the whole earth's treasury, piled with reveries of gentle ladies, flung aside like ravelled silk from life's worn stuff, with coins of scholars' fancy, which, being rung on workday counter, still sound silver-proof. In short, with all the dreams of dreamers young, before their heads have time for slipping off hope's pillow to the ground. How oft, indeed, we've sent our souls out from the rigid north, on bare white feet which would not print nor bleed, to climb the alpine passes and look forth, where booming low the Lombard rivers lead, to gardens, vineyards, all a dream is worth. Sights thou and I, love, have seen afterward, from Tuscan Bellasguardo, wide awake, when standing on the actual blessed sward, Where Galileo stood at nights to take the vision of the stars, we have found it hard, gazing upon the earth and heaven, to make a choice of beauty. Therefore let us all, refreshed in England or another land, by visions with their fountain rise and fall, of this earth's darling, we who understand a little how the Tuscan musical vowels do round themselves as if they plan eternities of separate sweetness, we who love Sorrento vines and picture book, or ere in wine cup we pledged faith or glee, who loved Rome's wolf with demigods that suck, or ere we loved truth's own divinity, who loved in brief the classic hill and brook, and Ovid's dreaming tales and Petrarch's song, or ere we loved love's self even, let us give the blessing of our souls and wish them strong, to bear it to the height where prayers arrive, when faithful spirits pray against a wrong, to this great cause of southern men who strive in God's name for man's rights and shall not fail. Behold, they shall not fail. The shouts ascend above the shrieks in Naples and prevail. Rows of shot corpses waiting for the end of burial seem to smile up straight and pale into the azure air and apprehend that final gun flash from Palermo's coast, which lightens their apocalypse of death. So let them die. The world shows nothing lost. Therefore, not blood, above or underneath. What matter, brothers, if ye keep your post on duty's side, as sword returns to sheath, so dust to grave, but souls find place in heaven. Heroic daring is the true success. The Eucharistic bread requires no leaven. And though your ends were hopeless, we should bless your cause as holy. Strive, and having striven, take for God's recompense that righteousness. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Casa Guidi Windows, Part 2, by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Read for LibriVox.org by Arden. March 7, 2025. Casa Guidi Windows, Part 2. I wrote a meditation in a dream, hearing a little child sing in the street. I leant upon his music as a theme, till it gave way beneath my heart's full beat, which tried an exultant prophecy, but dropped before the measure was complete. Alas, for songs and hearts, O Tuscany, O Dante's Florence, is the type too plain? Didst thou, too, only sing of liberty, as little children take up a high strain, with unintentioned voices, and break off, to sleep upon their mother's knees again? Couldst thou not watch 1 hour, then sleep enough, that sleep may hasten manhood and sustain the faint pale spirit with some muscular stuff? But we who cannot slumber as thou dost, we thinkers who have thought for thee and failed, we hopers who have hoped for thee and lost, we poets wandered round by dreams, who hailed from this Atreides roof with lintel post, which still drips blood, the worst part hath prevailed, the fire voice of the beacons to declare, Troy taken, sorrow ended, cozened through a crimson sunset in a misty air. What now remains for such as we to do? God's judgments peradventure will he bear to the roots of thunder if we kneel and sue. From Casa Guidi windows I looked forth, and saw 10,000 eyes of Florentines flash back the triumph of the Lombard North, saw 50 banners freighted with the signs and exaltations of the awakened earth float on above the multitude in lines, straight to the Pitti. So the vision went, and so, between those populous rough hands, raised in the sun, Duke Leopold outleant, and took the patriot's oath which henceforth stands among the oaths of perjurers, eminent, to catch the lightnings ripen for these lands. Why swear at all, thou false Duke Leopold? What need to swear? What need to boast thy blood, unspoilt of Austria, and thy heart unsold? Away from Florence! It was understood, God made thee not too vigorous or too bold, and men had patience with thy quiet mood, and women pity as they saw thee pace their festive streets with premature grey hairs. We turned the mild rejection of thy face to princely meanings, took thy wrinkling cares for ruffling hopes, and called thee weak, not base. Nay, better light the torches for more prayers, and smoke the pale Madonnas at the shrine, being still our poor Grand Duke, our good Grand Duke, who cannot help the Austrian in his line, then write an oath upon a nation's book, For men to spit at with scorn's blurring brine, who dares forgive what none can overlook? For me, I do repent me in this dust of towns and temples which makes Italy. I sigh amid the sighs which breathe a gust of dying century to century. Around us on the uneven crater crust of these old worlds, I bow my soul and knee. Absolve me, patriots, of my woman's fault, that ever I believed the man was true. These sceptred strangers shun the common salt, and therefore when the general board's in view, and they stand up to carve for blind and halt, the wise suspect the viands which ensue. I much repent that in this time and place, where many corpse lights of experience burn, from Caesar's and Lorenzo's festering race, to let in groping reasoners, I could learn no better counsel for a simple case than to put faith in princes in my turn. Had all the death piles of the ancient years flared up in vain before me, knew I not what stench arises from some purple gears, and how the scepters witness whence they got their briarwood, crackling through the atmospheres, foul smoke, by princely perjuries kept hot. Forgive me, ghosts of patriots, Brutus, thou, who trailest downhill into life again, thy blood-wade cloak, to indict me with thy slow, reproachful eyes, for being taught in vain, that while the illegitimate Caesars show, of meaner stature than the first full strain, confessed incompetent to conquer Gaul, they swoon as feebly and cross Rubicons, as rashly as any Julius of them all. Forgive that I forgot the mind which runs through absolute races too unskeptical. I saw the man among his little sons. His lips were warm with kisses while he swore. And I, because I am a woman, I, who felt my own child's coming life before the prescience of my soul and held faith high, I could not bear to think whoever bore that lips so warmed could shape so cold a lie. From Casa Guidi windows I looked out, again looked and beheld a different sight. The Duke had fled before the people's shout. Long live the Duke! A people, to speak right, must speak as soft as courtiers, lest a doubt should curdle brows of gracious sovereigns white. Moreover, that same dangerous shouting meant some gratitude for future favors, which were only promised, the constituent implied, the whole being subject to the hitch. In motu proprios, very incident, to all these Tsars, from Paul to Paulovitch, whereat the people rose up in the dust of the ruler's flying feet and shouted still, and loudly, only, this time, as was just, not live the Duke, who had fled for good or ill, but live the people, who remained and must, the unrenounced and unrenounceable. Long live the people, how they lived, and boiled, and bubbled in the cauldron of the street, how the young blustered, nor the old recoiled, and what a thunderous stir of tongues and feet trod flat the palpitating bells and foiled the joy guns of their echo, shattering it. How down they pulled the Duke's arms everywhere, how up they set new cafe signs to show where patriots might sip ices in pure air, the fresh paint smelling somewhat to and fro. How marched the civic guard and stopped to stare when boys broke windows in a civic glow. How rebel songs were sung to loyal tunes, and bishops cursed in ecclesiastic meters. How all the circuli grew large as moons, and all the speakers, moonstruck, thankful greeters of prospects which struck poor the ducal boons. A mere free press, and chambers, frank repeaters of great Garazzi's praises. There's a man, the father of the land, who, truly great, takes off that national disgrace and ban, the farthing tax upon our Florence gate, and saves Italia as he only can. How all the nobles fled, and would not wait, because they were most noble, which being so, how liberals vowed to burn their palaces, because free Tuscans were not free to go. How grown men raged at Austria's wickedness, and smote, while 50 striplings in a row marched straight to Piedmont for the wrong's redress. You say we failed in duty, we who wore black velvet like Italian Democrats, who slashed our sleeves like patriots, nor forswore the true republic in the form of hats. We chased the archbishop from the Duomo door. We chalked the walls with bloody caveats against all tyrants. If we did not fight, exactly, we fired muskets up the air to show that victory was ours of right. We met, had free discussion everywhere, except perhaps in the chambers, day and night. We proved the poor should be employed, that's fair, and yet the rich not worked for any wise. Pay certified, yet payers abrogated. Full work secured, yet liabilities to overwork excluded. Not one baited of all our holidays, that still, at twice or thrice a week, are moderately rated. We proved that Austria was dislodged, or would, or should be, and that Tuscany in arms would dislodge her, ending the old feud. And yet to leave our piazzas, shops, and farms for the simple sake of fighting was not good. We proved that also. Did we carry charms against being killed ourselves, that we should rush on killing others? What, desert herewith our wives and mothers? Was that duty? Tush! At which we shook the sword within the sheath, like heroes, only louder, and the flush ran up the cheek to meet the future wreath. Nay, what we proved, we shouted, how we shouted, especially the boys did, boldly planting that tree of liberty, whose fruit is doubted, because the roots are not of nature's granting. A tree of good and evil, none without it, grow gods, alas, and with it men are wanting. O holy knowledge, holy liberty, O holy rights of nations, if I speak these bitter things against the jugglery of days that in your names prove blind and weak, it is that tears are bitter when we see the brown skulls grin at death in churchyards bleak. We do not cry, this Yorick is too light, for death grows deathlier with that mouth he makes. So with my mocking, bitter things I write, because my soul is bitter for your sakes. O freedom, O my Florence! Men who might do greatly in a universe that breaks and burns must ever know before they do. Courage and patience are but sacrifice, and sacrifice is offered for and to, something conceived of. Each man pays a price for what himself counts precious, whether true or false the appreciation it implies. But here, no knowledge, no conception, naught. Desire was absent that provides great deeds from out the greatness of prevenient thought. And action, like a flame that needs a steady breath and fuel being caught. Up, like a burning reed from other reeds, flashed in the empty and uncertain air, then wavered, then went out. Behold, who blames a crooked course when not a goal is there to round the fervid striving of the games? An ignorance of means may minister to greatness, but an ignorance of aims makes it impossible to be great at all. So with our Tuscans, let none dare to say, here virtue never can be national, here fortitude can never cut away between the Austrian muskets out of thrall. I tell you rather that, whoever may discern true ends here, shall grow pure enough to love them, brave enough to strive for them, and strong to reach them though the roads be rough. That having learnt, by no mere apothegm, not just the draping of a graceful stuff about a statue broidered at the hem, not just the trilling on an opera stage of libertà to bravos, a fair word, yet too allied to inarticulate rage and breathless sobs, for singing though the chord were deeper than they struck it, but the gauge of civil wants sustained and wrongs abhorred, the serious sacred meaning and full use of freedom for a nation, then, indeed, our Tuscans, underneath the bloody dews of some new morning, rising up agreed, and bold, will want no Saxon souls or thews to sweep their piazzas clear of Austria's breed. Alas, alas, it was not so this time. Conviction was not, courage failed, and truth was something to be doubted of. The mime changed masts, because a mime, the tide is smooth, and running in is out, no sense of crime, because no sense of virtue, sudden ruth, seized on the people. They would have again their good Grand Duke and leave Garazzi, though He took that tax from Florence, much in vain. He takes it from the market carts, we trow, while urging that no market men remain, but all march off and leave the spade and plough, to die among the Lombards. Was it thus the dear paternal Duke did? Live the Duke! At which the joy bells multitudinous, swept by an opposite wind, as loudly shook, call back the mild Archbishop to his house, to bless the people with his frightened look. He shall not yet be hanged, you comprehend. Seize on Garazzi, guard him in full view, or else we stab him in the back to end. Rub out those chalk devices, set up new the Duke's arms, doff your Phrygian caps, and men, the pavement of the piazza's broken too. By barren poles of freedom, smooth the way for the ducal carriage, lest his highness sigh. Here trees of liberty grew yesterday. Long live the Duke! How roared the cannonry, how rocked the bell towers, and through thickening spray of nosegays, wreaths, and kerchiefs tossed on high, how marched the civic guard, the people still, being good at shouts, especially the boys. Alas, poor people of an unfledged will, most fitly expressed by such a callow voice. Alas, still poorer Duke, incapable of being worthy even of so much noise. You think he came back instantly, with thanks, and tears in his faint eyes, and hands extended, to stretch the franchise through their utmost ranks, that having, like a father, apprehended, he came to pardon fatherly those pranks, played out and now in filial service ended, that some love token, like a prince, he threw, to meet the people's love call in return. Well, how he came I will relate to you, and if your heart should burn, why, hearts must burn, to make the ashes which things old and new shall be washed clean in, as this Duke will learn. From Casa Guidi windows gazing then, I saw and witnessed how the Duke came back. The regular tramp of horse and tread of men did smite the silence like an anvil black, and sparkless, with her wide eyes at full strain, our Tuscan nurse exclaimed, Alack, alack! Signora, these shall be the Austrians. Nay, be still, I answered, do not wake the child. For so my 2 months' baby sleeping lay, in milky dreams upon the bed and smiled, and I thought, he shall sleep on while he may, through the world's baseness, not being yet defiled. Why should he be disturbed by what is done? Then, gazing, I beheld the long-drawn street live out, from end to end, full in the sun, with Austria's thousand, sword and bayonet, horse, foot, artillery, cannons rolling on, like blind, slow storm clouds gestant with the heat of undeveloped lightnings, each bestrode by a single man, dust white from head to heel. Indifferent as the dreadful thing he rode, like a sculptured fate serene and terrible, as some smooth river which has overflowed, will slow and silent down its current wheel. A loosened forest, all the pines are red, so swept in mute significance of storm, the marshalled thousands, not an eye deflect, to left or right, to catch a novel form, a Florence city adorned by architect and carver, or of beauties live and warm, scared at the casements, all straightforward eyes, and faces held as steadfast as their swords, and cognizant of acts, not imageries. The key, O Tuscans, too well fits the words. Ye ask for mimes, these bring you tragedies. For purple, these shall wear it as your lords. Ye played like children, die like innocents. Ye mimic lightnings with a torch, the crack of the actual bolt your pastime circumvents. Ye called up ghosts, believing they were slack, to follow any voice from Gilboa's tents. Here's Samuel, and so Grand Dukes come back. And yet they are no prophets though they come. That awful mantle they are drawing close shall be searched one day by the shafts of doom, through double folds now hoodwinking the brows. Resuscitated monarchs disentomb grave reptiles with them in their new life throes. Let such beware. Behold, the people waits, like God, as he in his serene of might, so they in their endurance of long straits. Ye stamp no nation out, though day and night ye tread them with that absolute heel which grates, and grinds them flat from all attempted height. You kill worms sooner with a garden spade than you kill peoples. Peoples will not die. The tail curls stronger when you lop the head. They writhe at every wound and multiply, and shudder into a heap of life that's made, thus vital from God's own vitality. 'Tis hard to shrivel back a day of God's, once fixed for judgment. 'Tis as hard to change the peoples when they rise beneath their loads, and heave them from their backs with violent wrench, to crush the oppressor. For that judgment rides, the measure of this popular revenge. Meanwhile, from Casa Guidi windows we beheld the armament of Austria flow into the drowning heart of Tuscany, and yet none wept, none cursed, or if 'twas so, they wept and cursed in silence, silently. Our noisy Tuscans watched the invading foe. They had learnt silence, pressed against the wall, and grouped upon the church steps opposite. A few pale men and women stared at all. God knows what they were feeling with their white, constrained faces, they so prodigal of cry and gesture when the world goes right. Or wrong indeed, but here was depth of wrong, and here still water. They were silent here, and through that sentient silence struck along that measured tramp from which it stood out clear. Distinct the sound in silence, like a gong, at midnight, each by the other awfuler, while every soldier in his cap displayed a leaf of olive, dusty, bitter thing, was such plucked at Novara, as it said. A cry is up in England, which doth ring the hollow world through, that for ends of trade, and virtue and God's better worshipping, we henceforth should exalt the name of peace, and leave those rusty wars that eat the soul. Besides their clippings at our golden fleece, I, too, have loved peace, and from bowl to bowl, of immemorial undeciduous trees, would write, as lovers use upon a scroll, the holy name of peace, and set it high, where none could pluck it down. On trees, I say, not upon gibbets, with the greenery of dewy branches and the flowery May, sweet mediation betwixt earth and sky, providing for the shepherd's holiday. Not upon gibbets, though the vulture leaves the bones to quiet which he first picked bare. Not upon dungeons, though the wretch who graves and groans within less stirs the outer air than any little field mouse stirs the sheaves. Not upon chain bolts, though the slave's despair has dulled his helpless miserable brain, and left him blank beneath the freeman's whip, to sing and laugh out idiocies of pain. Nor yet on starving homes, where many a lip has sobbed itself asleep through curses vain. I love no peace which is not fellowship, and which includes not mercy. I would have rather the raking of the guns across the world, and shrieks against heaven's architrave, rather the struggle in the slippery fosse of dying men and horses, and the wave, blood bubbling, enough said, by Christ's own cross, and by this faint heart of my womanhood. Such things are better than a peace that sits beside a hearth in self-commended mood, and takes no thought how wind and rain by fits are howling out of doors against the good of thee, poor wanderer. What your peace admits of outside anguish while it keeps at home, I loathe to take its name upon my tongue. 'Tis no wise peace, 'tis treason stiff with doom, 'tis gagged despair and inarticulate wrong. Annihilated Poland, stifled Rome, dazed Naples, hungry fainting neath the thong, and Austria wearing a smooth olive leaf on her brute forehead, while her hoofs outpress the life from these Italian souls. In brief, O Lord of peace, who art Lord of righteousness, constrain the anguished worlds from sin and grief, pierce them with conscience, purge them with redress, and give us peace which is no counterfeit. But wherefore should we look out any more from Casa Guidi windows? Shut them straight, and let us sit down by the folded door, and veil our saddened faces, and so wait what next the judgment heavens make ready for. I have grown too weary of these windows, sights come thick enough and clear enough in thought. Without the sunshine, souls have inner lights, and since the Grand Duke has come back and brought this army of the north which thus requites his filial south, we leave him to be taught his south too, has learnt something certainly, whereof the practice will bring profit soon, and peradventure other eyes may see, from Casa Guidi windows, what is done, or undone, whatsoever deeds they be. Pope Pius will be glorified in none. Record that gain, Mazzini, it shall top some heights of sorrow. Peter's Rock, so named, shall lure no vessel any more to drop among the breakers. Peter's chair is shamed, like any vulgar throne the nations lop to pieces for their firewood unreclaimed. And when it burns too, we shall see as well, in Italy as elsewhere, let it burn. The cross, accounted still adorable, is Christ's cross only. If the thieves would earn some stealthy genuflections, we rebel, and here the impenitent thief has had its turn, as God knows, and the people on their knees scoff and toss back the croziers stretched like yokes, to press their heads down lower by degrees. So Italy, by means of these last strokes, escapes the danger which preceded these, of leaving captured hands in cloven oaks, of leaving very souls within the buckle, whence bodies struggled outward, of supposing that free men may like bondsmen kneel and truckle, and then stand up as usual, without losing an inch of stature. Those whom she-wolves suckle will bite as wolves do in the grapple closing of adverse interests. This at last is known. Thank Pius for the lesson, that albeit among the popedom's 100 heads of stone, which blink down on you from the roof's retreat, in Siena's tiger-striped cathedral, Joan and Borgia mid their fellows you may greet. A harlot and a devil you will see, not a man, still less angel, grandly set, with open soul to render man more free. The fishers are still thinking of the net, and if not thinking of the hook too, we are counted somewhat deeply in their debt. But that's a rare case, so, by hook and crook, they take the advantage, agonizing Christ, by rustier nails than those of Cedron's brook, in the people's body very cheaply priced, and quote high priesthood out of holy book, while buying death fields with the sacrificed. Priests, there's no such name, God's own, except ye take most vainly, through heaven's lifted gate, the priestly ephod in soul glory swept, when Christ ascended, entered in, and sate, with victor face sublimely overwept, at deity's right hand, to mediate, he alone, he forever, on his breast, the Urim and the Thummim, fed with fire, from the full Godhead, flicker with the unrest of human pitiful heartbeats. Come up higher, all Christians, Levi's tribe is dispossessed, that solitary alb ye shall admire, but not cast lots for. The last chrism, poured right, was on that head, and poured for burial, and not for domination in men's sight. What are these churches? The old temple wall doth overlook them juggling with the slate of surplice, candlestick, and altar pall. East Church and West Church, aye, North Church and South, Rome's Church and England's, let them all repent, and make concordats twixt their soul and mouth, succeed St. Paul by working at the tent, become infallible guides by speaking truth, and excommunicate their pride that bent and cramped the souls of men. Why, even here, priestcraft burns out, the twined linen blazes, not, like asbestos, to grow white and clear, but all to perish, while the fire smell raises to life some swooning spirits who, last year, lost breath and heart in these church-stifled places. Why, almost, through this Pius, we believed the priesthood could be an honest thing. He smiled, so saintly while our corn was being sheaved, for his own granaries, showing now defiled, his hireling hands, a better help's achieved, than if they blessed us shepherd-like and mild. False doctrine, strangled by its own amen, dies in the throat of all this nation, who will speak a pope's name as they rise again. What woman or what child will count him true? What dreamer praise him with the voice or pen? What man fight for him? Pius takes his due. Record that gain, Mazzini. Yes, but first, set down thy people's faults. Set down the want, of soul conviction, set down aims dispersed, and incoherent means, and valor scant, because of scanty faith, and schisms accursed, that wrench these brother hearts from covenant. With freedom in each other, set down this, and see to overcome it when the seasons bring the fruits thou wilt not miss. If wary, let no cry of patriot men distract thee from the stern analysis of masses who cry only, keep thy ken, clear as thy soul is virtuous. Hero's blood splashed up against thy noble brow in Rome. Let such not blindly to an interlude, which was not also holy, yet did come, twixt sacramental actions, brotherhood, despised even there, and something of the doom of Remus in the trenches. Listen now. Rossi died silent near where Caesar died. He did not say, my Brutus, is it thou? But Italy unquestioned testified, I killed him, I am Brutus, I avow. At which the whole world's laugh of scorn replied, a poor maimed copy of Brutus, too much like, indeed, to be so unlike, too unskilled, at Philippi and the honest battle pike, to be so skillful where a man is killed, near Pompey's statue, and the dagger strike, at unawares in the throat, was thus fulfilled, an omen once of Michelangelo, when Marcus Brutus he conceived complete, and strove to hurl him out by blow on blow, upon the marble, at art's thunder heat, till haply some pre-shadow rising slow, of what his Italy would fancy meet, to be called Brutus, straight his plastic hand, fell back before his prophet soul, and left a fragment, a maimed Brutus, but more grand than this, so named at Rome was. Let thy weft present one woof and warp, Mazzini, stand, with no man hankering for a dagger's heft. No, not for Italy, nor stand apart. No, not for the Republic, from those pure, brave men who hold the level of thy heart, in patriot truth, as lover and as doer, albeit they will not follow where thou art, as extreme theorist, trust and distrust fewer, and so bind strong and keep unstained the cause, which, God's sign granted, war trumps newly blown, shall yet enunciate to the world's applause. But now the world is busy, it has grown, a fair-going world, imperial England draws the flowing ends of the earth from Fez, Canton, Delhi and Stockholm, Athens and Madrid, the Russias and the vast Americas, as if a queen drew in her robes amid her golden cincture, isles, peninsulas, capes, continents, far inland countries hid by jasper sands and hills of chrysoprase, all trailing in their splendors through the door of the gorgeous crystal palace. Every nation, to every other nation strange of yore, gives face to face the civic salutation, and holds up in a proud right hand before that Congress the best work which she can fashion, by her best means. These corals, will you please to match against your oaks? They grow as fast, within my wilderness of purple seas. This diamond stared upon me as I passed, as a live god's eye from a marble frieze. Along a dark of diamonds, is it clasped? I wove these stuffs so subtly that the gold swims to the surface of the silk like cream, and curdles to fair patterns. Ye behold, these delicatest muslins rather seem than be, you think. Nay, touch them and be bold, though such veiled Chaki's face in Hafiz's dream. These carpets, you walk slow on them like kings, inaudible like spirits, while your foot dips deep in velvet roses and such things. Even Apollonius might commend this flute, the music, winding through the stops, up springs, to make the player very rich, compute. Here is goblet glass, to take in with your wine, the very sun its grapes were ripened under. Drink light and juice together, and each fine. This model of a steamship moves your wonder. You should behold it crushing down the brine, like a blind Jove who feels his way with thunder. Here is sculpture. Ah, we live too. Why not throw our life into our marbles? Art has place for other artists after Angelo. I tried to paint out here a natural face, for nature includes Raphael, as we know. Not Raphael nature. Will it help my case? Methinks you will not match this steel of ours, nor you this porcelain. One might dream the clay retained in it the larvae of the flowers. They bud so, round the cup, the old spring way. Nor you these carven woods, where birds and bowers, with twisting snakes and climbing cupids play. O Magi of the east and of the west, your incense, gold, and myrrh are excellent. What gifts for Christ, then, bring ye with the rest? Your hands have worked well. Is your courage spent? In handwork only, have you nothing best, which generous souls may perfect and present? And he shall thank the givers for no light of teaching liberal nations for the poor, who sit in darkness when it is not night. No cure for wicked children. Christ, no cure. No hope for women sobbing out of sight, because men made the laws. No brothel lure, burnt out by popular lightnings, hast thou for. No remedy, my England, for such woes. No outlet, Austria, for the scourged and bound. No entrance for the exiled. No repose, Russia, for knouted Poles worked underground. And gentle ladies bleached among the snows. No mercy for the slave, America. No hope for Rome, free France, chivalric France. Alas, great nations have great shames, I say. No pity, O world, no tender utterance of benediction and prayers stretch this way. For poor Italia, baffled by mischance, O gracious nations, give some ear to me. You all go to your fair, and I am one, who at the roadside of humanity beseech your alms, God's justice to be done. So prosper, in the name of Italy. Meantime, her patriot dead have been a sin. They only have done well, and what they did, being perfect, it shall triumph. Let them slumber. No king of Egypt in a pyramid is safer from oblivion, though he number full 70 sermons for a coverlid. These dead be seeds of life, and shall encumber the sad heart of the land until it loose the clammy clods and let out the spring growth, and beatific green through every bruise. The tyrant should take heed to what he doth, since every victim carrion turns to use, and drives a chariot like a god made wroth. Against each piled injustice, I, the least, dead for Italia, not in vain has died, though many vainly, ere life's struggle ceased, to mad dissimilar ends have swerved aside. Each grave her nationality has pieced, by its own majestic breadth, and fortified, and pinned it deeper to the soil. Forlorn, of thanks be, therefore, no one of these graves, not hers, who at her husband's side, in scorn, outfaced the whistling shot and hissing waves, until she felt her little babe unborn recoil within her from the violent staves and bloodhounds of the world, at which her life dropped inwards from her eyes and followed it, beyond the hunters. Garibaldi's wife and child died so, and now the seaweeds fit her body like a proper shroud and coif. Then murmurously the ebbing waters grit the little pebbles while she lies interred in the sea sand. Perhaps, ere dying thus, she looked up in his face, which never stirred from its clenched anguish, as to make excuse for leaving him for his, if so she erred. He well remembers that she could not choose. A memorable grave another is, at Genoa. There a king may fitly lie, who, bursting that heroic heart of his, that lost Novara, that he could not die, though thrice into the cannon's eyes for this, he plunged his shuddering steed, and felt the sky reel back between the fire shocks, stripped away the ancestral ermine ere the smoke had cleared, and naked to the soul, that none might say his kingship covered what was base and bleared with treason, went out straight in exile, yea, an exiled patriot, let him be revered. Yea, verily, Charles Albert has died well, and if he lived not also, as one spoke, the sin passed softly with the passing bell, for he was shriven, I think, in cannon smoke, and taking off his crown, made visible a hero's forehead, shaking Austria's yoke, He shattered his own hand and heart. So best, his last words were upon his lonely bed. I do not end like popes and dukes at least. Thank God for it. And now that he is dead, admitting it is proved and manifest that he was worthy, with a discrowned head, to measure heights with patriots, let them stand beside the man in his Oporto shroud, and each vouchsafe to take him by the hand, and kiss him on the cheek, and say aloud, Thou too hast suffered for our native land. My brother, thou art one of us, be proud. Still, graves, when Italy is taught upon, still, the patriot's tomb, the stranger's hate, still Niobe, still fainting in the sun, by whose most dazzling arrows violate, her beauteous offspring perished, has she won, nothing but garlands for the graves from fate, nothing but death songs, yes, be it understood. Life throbs in noble Piedmont, while the feet of Rome's clay image, dabbled soft in blood, grow flat with dissolution, and, as me, will soon be shoveled off like other mud, to leave the passage free in church and street. And I, who first took hope up in this song, because a child was singing one, behold, the hope and omen were not haply wrong. Poets are soothsayers still, like those of old, who studied flights of doves, and creatures young and tender, mighty meanings may unfold. The sun strikes through the windows up the floor, stand out in it my own young Florentine, not 2 years old, and let me see thee more. It grows along thy amber curls to shine brighter than elsewhere. Now look straight before, and fix thy brave blue English eyes on mine, and from my soul, which fronts the future so, with unabashed and unabated gaze, teach me to hope for what the angels know, when they smile clear as thou dost, down God's ways, with just alighted feet between the snow and snowdrops, where a little lamb may graze. Thou hast no fear, my lamb, about the road, albeit in our vainglory we assume that less than we have thou hast learned of God. Stand out, my blue-eyed prophet, thou to whom the earliest world daylight that ever flowed through Casa Guidi windows chanced to come. Now shake the glittering nimbus of thy hair, and be God's witness that the elemental new springs of life are gushing everywhere, to cleanse the watercourses and prevent all concrete obstructions which infest the air. The earth's alive, and gentle or ungentle motions within her signify but growth. The ground swells greenest o'er the laboring moles, howe'er the uneasy world is vexed and wroth. Young children, lifted high on parent souls, look round them with a smile upon the mouth, and take for music every bell that tolls. Who said we should be better if like these? But we sit murmuring for the future, though posterity is smiling on our knees, convicting us of folly. Let us go. We will trust God. The blank interstices men take for ruins he will build into, with pillared marbles rare, or knit across with generous arches till the fane's complete. This world has no perdition, if some loss. Such cheer I gather from thy smiling, sweet, the self-same cherub faces which emboss the veil, lean inward to the mercy seat. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Caves of Elephanta by L.E.L. Letitia Elizabeth Landon. Read for LibriVox.org by E.H. Blackmore. What know we of them? Nothing. There they stand, gloomy as night, inscrutable as fate. Altars no more divine, and shrines which know nor priests, nor votaries, nor sacrifice. The strangers wonder all their worship now. And yet, coeval as the native rocks, seem they with Mother Earth immutable. Time, tempest, warfare, ordinary decay is not for these. The memory of man has lost their rise, although they are his work. Two senses here are present, one of power and one of nothingness. Doth it not mock the mighty mind to see the meaner part, the task it taught its hands, outlast itself? The temple was a type, a thing of stone, built by laborious days which made up years. The creed which hallowed it was of the soul. And yet the creed hath passed, the temple stands. The high beliefs which raised themselves to heaven, the general truths on which religions grow, the strong necessity of self-restraint, the needful comfort of some future hope than that whose promise only binds today, and future fear, parent of many faiths, those vast desires, unquenchable, which sweep beyond the limits of our little world and know there is another by themselves, these constitute the spiritual of man. 'Tis they who elevate and who redeem by some great purpose, some onlooking end, the mere brute exercise of common strength. Yet these have left no trace. The mighty shrine, undeified, speaks force, and only force, man's meanest attribute. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Charge of the Light Brigade by Alfred Lord Tennyson, read for LibriVox.org by Leena Manohar. Half a league, half a league, half a league onward, all in the valley of death, rode the 600. Forward the Light Brigade, charge for the guns, he said. Into the valley of death, rode the 600. Forward the Light Brigade, was there a man dismayed? Not though the soldiers knew someone had blundered. Theirs was not to make reply, theirs was not to reason why, theirs was but to do and die. Into the valley of death rode the 600. Cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon in front of them, volleyed and thundered, stormed at with shot and shell, boldly they rode and well, into the jaws of death, into the mouth of hell, rode the 600. Flashed all their sabres bare, flashed as they turned in air, sabring the gunners there, charging an army while all the world wondered. Plunging in the battery smoke, right through the line they broke, Cossack and Russian, reeled from the sabre stroke, shattered and sundered, then they rode back, but not the 600. Cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon in front of them, volleyed and thundered, stormed at with shot and shell, while the horse and hero fell. They that fought so well came through the jaws of death, back from the mouth of hell, all that was left of them, left of the 600. When can their glory fade? Oh, the wild charge they made, all the world wondered. Honour the charge they made, honour the Light Brigade, noble 600. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Country Retreat by L.E.L. Letitia Elizabeth Landon, read for LibriVox.org by E.H. Blackmore. O lone and lovely solitude, washed by the sounding sea, nature was in a poet's mood when she created thee. How pleasant in the hour of noon to wander through the shade, the soft and golden shade which June flings o'er thy inland glade. The wild rose like a wreath above, the ash trees fairy keys, the aspen trembling as if love were whispered by the breeze. These o'er the beech's darker bough for canopy o'erhead, while moss and fragile flowers below an elfin pillow spread. Here one might dream the hours away, as if the world had not or grief or care or disarray to darken human lot. Yet 'tis not here that I would dwell, though fair the place may be, the summer's favourite citadel, a busier scene for me. I love to see the human face reflect the human mind, to watch in every crowded place their opposites combined. There's more for thought in one brief hour in yonder busy street than all that ever leaf or flower taught in their green retreat. Industry, intellect, and skill appear in all their pride. The glorious force of human will triumphs on every side, yet touched with meekness, for on all is set the sign and seal of sorrow, suffering, and thrall, which none but own and feel. The hearse that passes with its dead, the homeless beggar's prayer, speak words of warning and of dread to every passer there. Beautiful the dreaming brought by valleys and green fields, but deeper feeling, higher thought, is what the city yields. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Early Spring by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Read for LibriVox.org by Sherr. Once more the heavenly power makes all things new, and domes the red-ploughed hills with loving blue. The blackbirds have their wills and throstles too. Opens a door in heaven from skies of glass, a Jacob's ladder falls on greening grass, and o'er the mountain walls young angels pass. Before them fleets the shower, and burst the buds, and shine the level lands, and flash the floods. The stars are from their hands flung through the woods with living airs how softly fanned, light as from where the deep all down the sand is breathing in his sleep, heard by the land. O follow, leaping blood, the season's lure, O heart, look down and up, serene, secure, warm as the crocus cup, like snowdrops pure. Past, future, glimpse and fade through some slight spell, a gleam of yonder veil, some far blue fell. And sympathies, how frail in the sound and smell, till at thy chuckled note, thou twinkling bird, the fairy fancies range, and, slightly stirred, ring little bells of change from word to word. For now the heavenly power makes all things new, and thaws the cold, and fills the flower with dew. The blackbirds have their wills, the poets too. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Ecclesiastes Chapter 3, verses 1 through 8 by King Solomon. Read for LibriVox.org by Roger Smith. Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 8. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get, and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. End of recording. This recording is in the public domain.
The Encomion of Lady Pecunia, or the Praise of Money, by Richard Barnfield. Read for LibriVox.org by E.H. Blackmore. To the gentlemen readers. Gentlemen, being encouraged through your gentle acceptance of my Cynthia, I have once more adventured on your courtesies, hoping to find you, as I have done heretofore, friendly. Being determined to write of something, but yet not resolved of anything, I considered with myself, if one should write of love, they will say, why, everyone writes of love. If of virtue, why, who regards virtue? To be short, I could think of nothing, but either it was common, or not at all in request. At length I bethought myself of a subject both new, as having never been written upon before, and pleasing, as I thought, because man's nature commonly loves to hear that praised, with whose presence he is most pleased. Erasmus, the glory of Netherland and the refiner of the Latin tongue, wrote a whole book in the praise of folly. Then if so excellent a scholar writ in praise of vanity, why may not I write in praise of that which is profitable? There are no two countries where gold is esteemed less than in India and more than in England. The reason is because the Indians are barbarous and our nation civil. I have given Pecunia the title of a woman, both for the termination of the word, and because, as women are, she is loved of men. The bravest voyages in the world have been made for gold. For it men have ventured by sea to the furthest parts of the earth, in the pursuit whereof England's Nestor and Neptune, Hawkins and Drake, lost their lives, upon the deaths of which two, of the first I writ this: the waters were his winding sheet, the sea was made his tomb, yet for his fame the ocean sea was not sufficient room. Of the latter this: England his heart, his corpse the waters have, and that which raised his fame became his grave. The Praetorians, after the death of Pertinax, in the election of a new emperor, more esteemed the money of Julianus than either the virtue of Severus or the valour of Pescennius. Then of what great estimation and account this Lady Pecunia both hath been in the world and is at this present, I leave to your judgment. But what speak I so much of her praise in my epistle, that have commended her so at large in my book? To the reading whereof, gentlemen, I refer you. The Praise of Lady Pecunia. I sing not of Angelica the fair, for whom the paladin of France fell mad, nor of sweet Rosamond, old Clifford's heir, whose death did make the second Henry sad, but of the fairest fair, Pecunia, the famous queen of rich America. Goddess of gold, great empress of the earth, O thou that canst do all things under heaven, that dost convert the saddest mind to mirth, of whom the elder age was quite bereaven, of thee I'll sing, and in thy praise I'll write. You golden angels, help me to indite. You alone can make my muse to speak, and tell a golden tale with silver tongue. You only can my pleasing silence break, and add some music to a merry song. But amongst all the five in music's art, I would not sing the countertenor part. The mean is best, and that I mean to keep. So shall I keep myself from that I mean, lest with some others I be forced to weep, and cry peccavi in a doleful scene. But to the matter which I have in hand, the Lady Regent, both by sea and land. When Saturn lived and wore the kingly crown, and Jove was yet unborn, but not unbred, this lady's fame was then of no renown, for gold was then no more esteemed than lead. Then truth and honesty were only used, silver and gold were utterly refused. But when the world grew wiser in conceit, and saw how men in manners did decline, how charity began to lose her heat, and one did at another's good repine, then did the aged first of all respect her, and vowed from thenceforth never to reject her. Thus with the world her beauty did increase, and many suitors had she to obtain her. Some sought her in the wars, and some in peace, but few of youthful age could ever gain her, or if they did, she soon was gone again, and would with them but little while remain. For why, against the nature of her sex, that commonly despise the feeble old, she loves old men, but young men she rejects, because to her their love is quickly cold. Old men, like husbands jealous of their wives, lock her up fast and keep her as their lives. The young man, careless to maintain his life, neglects her love, as though he did abhor her, like one that hardly doth obtain a wife, and when he hath her once, he cares not for her. She, seeing that the young man doth despise her, leaves the frank heart, and flies unto the miser. He entertains her with a joyful heart, and seems to rue her undeserved wrong, and from his presence she shall never part, or if she do, he thinks her absence long, and oftentimes he sends for her again, whose life without her cannot long remain. And when he hath her in his own possession, he locks her in an iron-barred chest, and doubting somewhat of the like transgression, he holds that iron-walled prison best. And lest some rusty sickness should infect her, he often visits her, and doth respect her. As for the young man, subject unto sin, no marvel though the devil do distress him, to tempt man's frailty, which doth never lin, who many times hath not a cross to bless him. But how can he incur the heavens' curse that hath so many crosses in his purse? He needs not fear those wicked sprites that walk under the coverture of coal-black night, for why the devil still a cross doth balk, because on it was hanged the Lord of light. But let not misers trust to silver crosses, lest in the end their gains be turned to losses. But what care they, so they may hoard up gold, either for God or devil or heaven or hell, so they may fair Pecunia's face behold, and every day their mounts of money tell. What though to count their coin they never blin, count they their coin, and counts not God their sin. But what talk I of sin to usurers, or look for mendment at a miser's hand? Pecunia hath so many followers, bootless it is her power to withstand. King Covetize and Wariness his wife, the parents were that first did give her life. But now unto her praise I will proceed, which is as ample as the world is wide. What great contentment doth her presence breed in him that can his wealth with wisdom guide. She is the sovereign queen of all delights. For her the lawyer pleads, the soldier fights. For her the merchant ventures on the seas. For her the scholar studies at his book. For her the usurer with greater ease for silly fishes lays a silver hook. For her the townsman leaves the country village. For her the ploughman gives himself to tillage. For her the gentleman doth raise his rents, for her the serving man attends his master, for her the curious head new toys invents, for her to sores the surgeon lays his plaster. In fine, for her each man in his vocation applies himself in every several nation. What can thy heart desire but thou mayst have it, if thou hast ready money to disperse? Then thank thy fortune that so freely gave it, for of all friends the surest is thy purse. Friends may prove false and leave thee in thy need, but still thy purse will be thy friend indeed. Admit thou come into a place unknown, and no man knows of whence or what thou art. If once thy fair Pecunia she be shown, thou art esteemed a man of great desert, and placed at the table's upper end, not for thine own sake, but thy faithful friend. But if you want your lady's lovely grace, and have not wherewithal to pay your shot, your hostess presently will step in place. You are a stranger, sir, I know you not. By trusting diverse I am run in debt, therefore of me nor meat nor bed you get. Oh, who can then express the worthy praise which fair Pecunia justly doth deserve? That can the meanest man to honour raise, and feed the soul that ready is to starve? Affection, which was wont to be so pure, against a golden siege may not endure. Witness the trade of mercenary sin, or occupation, if thou list to term it, where fair Pecunia must the suit begin, as common tried experience doth confirm it. Not Mercury himself with silver tongue can so enchant as can a golden song. When nothing could subdue the Phrygian Troy, that city through the world so much renowned, Pecunia did her utterly destroy, and left her fame in dark oblivion drowned. And many cities since, no less in fame, for love of her have yielded to their shame. What thing is then so well beloved as money? It is a special comfort to the mind, more fair than women are, more sweet than honey, easy to lose, but very hard to find. In fine, to him whose purse begins to faint, gold is a god and silver is a saint. The time was once when honesty was counted a demigod, and so esteemed of all. But now Pecunia on his seat is mounted, since honesty in great disgrace did fall. No state, no calling now doth him esteem, nor of the other ill doth any deem. The reason is, because he is so poor, and who respects the poor and needy creature, still begging of his alms from door to door, all ragged and torn, and eke deformed in feature, in countenance so changed that none can know him, so weak and every vice doth overthrow him. But fair Pecunia, most divinely bred, for sundry shapes doth Proteus' self surpass. In one land she is suited all in lead, and in another she is clad in brass, but still within the coast of Albion she ever puts her best apparel on. Silver and gold, and nothing else is current in fair England's happy land. All baser sorts of metals have no warrant, yet secretly they slip from hand to hand. If any such be took, the same is lost, and presently is nailed on a post, which, with quicksilver being flourished over, seems to be perfect silver to the show, as women's paintings their defects do cover under this false attire, so do they go. If on a woollen cloth thou rub the same, then will it straight begin to blush for shame. If chafed on thy hair till it be hot, if it good silver be, the scent is sweet. If counterfeit, thy chafing hath begot a rank smelt savour, for a queen unmeet. Pecunia is a queen for her deserts, and in the deck may go for queen of hearts. The Queen of Hearts, because she rules all hearts, and hath all hearts obedient to her will, whose bounty fame unto the world imparts, and with her glory all the world doth fill. The Queen of Diamonds she cannot be, there is but one, Eliza, thou art she, and thou art she, O sacred sovereign, whom God hath helped with his almighty hand, blessing thy people with thy peaceful reign, and made this little land a happy land. May all those live that wish long life to thee, and all the rest perish eternally. The time was once when fair Pecunia here did basely go attired all in leather, but since her reign she never did appear but richly clad, in gold or silver either. Nor reason is it that her golden reign with baser coin eclipsed should remain. And as the coin she hath repurified from baser substance to the purest metals, religion so she hath refined beside, from papistry to truth, which daily settles within her people's hearts, though some there be that cleave unto their wonted papistry. No flock of sheep, but some are still infected, no piece of lawn so pure, but hath some fret. All buildings are not strong that are erected, all plants prove not that in good ground are set. Some tares are sown amongst the choicest seed, no garden can be cleansed of every weed. But now to her whose praise is her pretended, divine Pecunia, fairer than the morn, which cannot be sufficiently commended, whose sun-bright beauty doth the world adorn, adorns the world, but specially the purse, without whose presence nothing can be worse. Not fair Hesione, King Priam's sister, did ever show more beauty in her face than can this lovely lady, if it list her to show herself, admired for comely grace, which neither age can wear nor time conclude, for why her beauty yearly is renewed. New coin is coined each year within the tower, so that her beauty never can decay, which to resist no mortal man hath power, whenas she doth her glorious beams display. Nor doth Pecunia only please the eye, but charms the ear with heavenly harmony. Like to another Orpheus can she play upon her treble harp, whose silver sound enchants the ear and steals the heart away, nor hardly can deceit therein be found. Although such music some a shilling cost, yet is it worth but ninepence at the most. Had I the sweet enchanting tongue of Tully, that charmed the hearers like the siren's song, yet could I not describe the praises fully, which to Pecunia justly do belong. Let it suffice, her beauty doth excel, whose praise no pen can paint, no tongue can tell. Then how shall I describe with artless pen the praise of her, whose praise all praise surmounteth, breeding amazement in the minds of men, of whom this present age too much accounteth. Variety of words would sooner want than store of plenteous matter would be scant. Whether ye list to look into the city, where money tempts the poor beholder's eye, or to the country towns devoid of pity, where to the poor each place doth alms deny. All things for money now are bought and sold, that either heart can think or eye behold. Nay more, for money, as report doth tell, thou mayst obtain a pardon for thy sins. The Pope of Rome for money will it sell, whereby thy soul no small salvation wins. But how can he, of pride the chief beginner, forgive thy sins that is himself a sinner? Then, sith the Pope is subject unto sin, no marvel though divine Pecunia tempt him with her fair beauty, whose good will to win each one contends. And shall we then exempt him? Did never mortal man yet look upon her, but straightways he became enamoured on her. Yet would I wish the wight that loves her so, and hath obtained the like goodwill again, to use her wisely, lest she prove his foe, and so instead of pleasure breed his pain. She may be kissed, but she must not be clipped, lest such delight in bitter gall be dipped. The juice of grapes, which is a sovereign thing to cheer the heart and to revive the spirits, being used immoderately in surfeiting, rather dispraise than commendation merits. Even so Pecunia is, as she is used, good of herself, but bad if once abused. With her the tenant pays his landlord's rent. On her depends the stay of every state. To her rich presents every day are sent. In her it rests to end all dire debate. Through her to wealth is raised the country boor. From her proceeds much profit to the poor. Then how can I sufficiently commend her beauty's worth, which makes the world to wonder? Or end her praise, whose praises have no end, whose absence brings the stoutest stomach under? Let it suffice, Pecunia hath no peer, no wight, no beauty held, more fair, more dear. His prayer to Pecunia. Great lady, sith I have complied thy praise, according to my skill and not thy merit, and sought thy fame above the stars to raise, had I sweet Ovid's vein or Virgil's spirit, I crave no more but this, for my goodwill, that in my want thou wilt supply me still. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Follow Your Saint by Thomas Campion. Read for LibriVox.org by Public Domain Scholar. Follow your saint. Follow with accent sweet. Haste you, sad notes, fall at her flying feet. There, wrapped in cloud of sorrow, pity move, and tell the ravisher of my soul I perish for her love. But if she scorns my never-ceasing pain, then burst with sighing in her sight, and ne'er return again. All that I sung still to her praise did tend. Still she was first, still she my songs did end. Yet she my love and music both doeth fly, the music that her echo is, and beauty's sympathy. Then let my notes pursue her scornful flight. It shall suffice that they were breathed and died for her delight. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Had I a Heart for Falsehood Framed by Richard Brinsley Sheridan. Read for LibriVox.org by Anna Richardson. Had I a heart for falsehood framed, I ne'er could injure you, for though your tongue no promise claimed, your charms would make me true. To you no soul shall bear deceit, no stranger of a wrong, but friends in all the age you'll meet, and lovers in the young. For when they learn that you have blessed another with your heart, they'll bid aspiring passion rest, and act a brother's part. Then, lady, dread not here deceit, nor fear to suffer wrong, for friends in all the aged you'll meet, and lovers in the young. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Hour Hand by Grantland Rice. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. What time is it? It's time to move from out the stolid bordered frame. It's time to rustle from the groove and beat it back into the game. It's time to edge in with a start that's just a trifle more than bluff. And whatsoever be the part, to give the game your keenest stuff. What time is it? It's time to fight, to rally up the hosts of cheer. and in the face of bitter night to wipe away the useless tear. It's time to meet the foe called Fate with valiant heart and head held high. And whatsoever score may wait, it's time to can the alibi. What time is it? It's time to be out there among the battling throng. It's time to set your honor free from any taint of shame or wrong. It's time to be up on the square, and when you've cut in with your best, you'll find out in the far somewhere it's time enough to take your rest. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Hymns for Good Friday by Harriet McEwen Kimball. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. 1. Oh, see him where he hangs, the world's one sacrifice. No tongue of earth can tell his pangs, who our Redeemer dies. True God and truest man, in one forever knit, his anguish thought can never span, for it is infinite. In all the universe, the central figure he, as weeping centuries rehearse time's crowning tragedy. Again the flood of scorn, the scourge, the crown, the jeer, the sacred body nailed and torn, the taunts, the sponge, the spear. Again, O depth, O height of love that hath no name, the prayer for those who in his sight could no compassion claim. Again the rended rocks, the hearts of human stone, the darkness and the earthquake shocks, the graves of hope upthrown. At his dear feet again, his cross in her embrace, the weeping church like Magdalene buries her stricken face. Again the streaming side, the broken heart, the cry. Again, O Jesus crucified, the endless victory. 2. O sad, long-suffering face, how can I look and live? O pierced hands outstretched to save, O voice that cries, forgive, forgive, though crowned with thorns and mocked with many a jeer. Forgive, though tortured by the nails and wounded by the spear. O crimson tide of love, outgushing from his side, flow down and wash the guilty earth, where he is still denied. In penitence my soul takes up that cry, forgive. Flow down and wash away my sins, that I may look and live. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Idyll by Siegfried Sassoon. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. In the gray summer garden I shall find you, with daybreak and the morning hills behind you. There will be rain-wet roses, stir of wings, and down the wood a thrush that wakes and sings. Not from the past you'll come, but from that deep where beauty murmurs to the soul asleep. And I shall know the sense of life reborn, from dreams into the mystery of morn, where gloom and brightness meet. And standing there till that calm song is done, at last we'll share the league-spread choiring symphonies that are joy in the world and peace and the dawn's one star. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
If by Rudyard Kipling. Read for LibriVox.org by Atole. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. If you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster, and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to, broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools, if you can make a heap of all your winnings, and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, then yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and, which is more, you'll be a man, my son. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
I Seek and Desire by Sappho, read for LibriVox.org by Winston, Tharp. I seek and desire even as the wind that travels the plain and stirs in the bloom of the apple tree. I wander through life with a searching mind that is never at rest till I reach the shade of my lover's door. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud by William Wordsworth, read for LibriVox.org by Leena Manohar. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze, continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way. They stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth to me the show had brought. For oft, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills, and dances with the daffodils. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Little Dragon by Violet Jacob, read for LibriVox.org by Kayleigh. The nuns stood watching by the cloister wall, days dying to behold. Heaven seemed to her too far, too mystical, her soul to climb its ramparts but to fall, and earth was turned to gold. All down the harvest fields the western flame in floods of fire was born. There stood and rose, transfigured by the same, until the sickle should their glory claim, the gold ears of the corn. Her part was where eternal censers swung, by convent walls confined, the convent choir her requiem had sung. The church had bound her life, her soul, her tongue, her heart it could not bind. Around her place the golden sunflowers ranged, their faces to the west. As the declining day his steps estranged, they watched their Lord the sun untired, unchanged, and in their vigil blessed. And through the dust that rose in golden cloud, a golden helm shone high. Nor fast, nor prayer, nor penances had bowed the idle knight in strength of manhood proud, who laughed as he rode by. The dragon on his crested helmet shone, mocked her with leer uncouth. She heeded not, she saw his face alone, and from his eyes there flashed into her own the golden fire of youth. It burned the sacred stillness of her days, between the holy book, and her drooped lids there swam that ardent haze, and it hid God's altar in a golden blaze, before her raptured look. The reverend priests and nuns who marked her face with wonder day by day, stood still to see her kneeling in her place, and God has given her visions in his grace, she is his saint, said they. Ever more rapt in ecstasy she grew, remoter and more frail, for as the year died out and rose anew, they said again, her soul is rising too, above its earthly veil. And on a day when spring's own breath sublime whispered in field and tree, fervent and faint from some undreamed of clime, she passed from out the closed barred room of time into eternity. And when the priest his benediction spoke above her coffin clay, there fell great awe upon all holy folk, for golden light through all the cloister broke, and bathed her as she lay. Only above the carven arches old, it seemed they did not see, among the gargoyles, insolent and bold, one little dragon laughing through the gold, laughing eternally. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Mary's Lamb by Sarah Josepha Hale. Read for LibriVox.org by mleigh. Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. He followed her to school one day. That was against the rule. It made the children laugh and play to see a lamb at school. And so the teacher turned him out, but still he lingered near and waited patiently about till Mary did appear. And then he ran to her and laid his head upon her arm, as if he said, I'm not afraid, you'll keep me from all harm. What makes the lamb love Mary so? The eager children cry. Oh, Mary loves the lamb, you know, the teacher did reply. And you each gentle animal in confidence may bind, and make them follow at your call, if you are always kind. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Memorabilia by Robert Browning. Read for LibriVox.org by Roger Smith. Memorabilia. Ah, did you once see Shelley playing, and did he stop and speak to you? And did you speak to him again? How strange it seems and new. But you were living before that, and also you are living after. And the memory I started at, my starting moves your laughter. I crossed a moor with a name of its own, and a certain use in the world, no doubt. Yet a hand's breadth of it shines alone, mid the blank miles round about. For there I picked upon the heather, and there I put inside my breast a molted feather, an eagle feather. Well, I forget the rest. End of recording. This recording is in the public domain.
The Nymph's Reply to the Passionate Shepherd by Walter Raleigh. Read for LibriVox.org by mleigh. If all the world and love were young, and truth in every shepherd's tongue, these pretty pleasures might me move to live with thee and be thy love. But time drives flocks from field to fold, when rivers rage and rocks grow cold, and Philomel becometh dumb, the rest complains of cares to come. The flowers do fade, and wanton fields to wayward winter reckoning yields. A honey tongue, a heart of gall, is fancy's spring, but sorrow's fall. Thy gowns, thy shoes, thy beds of roses, thy cap, thy kirtle, and thy posies, soon break, soon wither, soon forgotten, in folly ripe, in reason rotten. Thy belt of straw and ivy buds, thy coral clasps and amber studs, all these in me no means can move to come to thee and be thy love. But could youth last and love still breed, had joys no date nor age no need, then these delights my mind might move to live with thee and be thy love. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
On Being Ready by Grantland Rice. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. The man who was there with the wallop and punch, the one who is trained to the minute, may well be around when the trouble begins, but you seldom will find he is in it. For they let him alone when they know he is there, for any set part in the ramble, to pick out the one who is shrinking and soft, and not quite attuned to the scramble. The one who is fixed for whatever they start is rarely expected to prove it. They pass him along for the next shot in sight, where they take a full wind-up and groove it. For who wants to pick on a bulldog or such, where a quivering poodle is handy, when he knows he can win with a kick or a brick, with no further trouble to bandy? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Only by Harriet Prescott Spofford. Read for LibriVox.org by Ike Sherr. Something to live for came to the place. Something to die for, maybe. Something to give even sorrow a grace, and yet it was only a baby. Cooing and laughter and gurgles and cries, dimples for tenderest kisses, chaos for hopes and for ruptures and sighs, chaos of fears and of blisses. Last year, like all years, the rose and the thorn. This year, wilderness, maybe, but heaven stooped under the roof on the morn that it brought them only a baby. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
On to the End by Grantland Rice. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. The path is closed across the years that lead again to April's day. The trail is shadowed by life's tears, where youth and spring have passed away, and only winter now remains of phantom dream and vanished friend. But on across its barren plains I hold my course unto the end. Well may the April stalwart boast, whose road still lies by May and June, with no dream yet turned to a ghost, where yet ambition pipes her tune, where life and love yet have a song, where cheering voices call afar, and where the winding way along no storm-blown shades of darkness bar. Well may he sing his battle hymn beyond the April fields of youth, well may he face the future dim, who yet some day must face the truth. Well may he keep the road that leads unto the goal that he has set, who from the tangled codes and creeds may still remember or forget. But I have come across the years to stand beneath a winter sky. Behind me through the blur of tears the dim far fields of April lie. The winter snow upon my head has fallen now, sans dream or friend, but through the storms or shadows sped, I hold my course unto the end. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Ozymandias by Percy Bysshe Shelley. Read for LibriVox by Rags. I met a traveler from an antique land, who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them, and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear: My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Passionate Shepherd to His Love by Christopher Marlowe. Read for LibriVox.org by mleigh. Come live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove that hills and valleys, dales and fields, or woods or steepy mountain yields. And we will sit upon the rocks and see the shepherds feed their flocks by shallow rivers to whose falls melodious birds sing madrigals. And I will make thee beds of roses and 1,000 fragrant posies, a cap of flowers and a kirtle embroidered all with leaves of myrtle, a gown made of the finest wool, which from our pretty lambs we pull, fair-lined slippers for the cold, with buckles of the purest gold, a belt of straw and ivy buds, with coral clasps and amber studs. And if these pleasures may thee move, come live with me and be my love. The shepherd swains shall dance and sing for thy delight each May morning. If these delights thy mind may move, then live with me and be my love. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Poet by Sherwood Anderson. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. If I could be brave enough and live long enough, I could crawl inside the life of every man, woman, and child in America. After I had gone within them, I could be born out of them. I could become something the like of which has never been seen before. We would see then what America is like. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Reminiscence by Anne Bronte. Read for LibriVox.org by PaulClayton. Yes, thou art gone, and nevermore thy sunny smile shall gladden me. But I may pass the old church door, and pace the floor that covers thee, may stand upon the cold damp stone, and think that frozen lies below the lightest heart that I have known, the kindest I shall ever know. Yet though I cannot see thee more, 'tis still a comfort to have seen, and though thy transient life is o'er, 'tis sweet to think that thou hast been. To think a soul so near divine, within a form so angel fair, united to a heart like thine, has gladdened once our humble sphere. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Shadow by Mary McDougall. Read for LibriVox.org by Newgatenovelist. I run across the morning sands to meet the waves in play, and swift and glad my shadow goes before me all the way. And when the evening candles burn in rose and gold and grey, she folds her wistful hands and kneels beside me as I pray. But when my lover comes to me, while twilight flutters dim, my shadow lifts her purple wings and leaves me there with him. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Silences by Mary McDougall. Read for LibriVox.org by Newgatenovelist. You told me of the wide eyes of a lad you killed in the war, and your voice went on into silence. And the silence was like a sick thing that drags itself into a corner to die. We walked, singing, through the wood, hand in hand, and then we fell silent. And our silence was like a broad-winged silver bird floating high above the trees. You turned to me with the sunset on your face and cried my name, and there was a sudden silence. And the silence was like a great flaming lily that bloomed as we looked, flinging out red and purple stars. Now you are gone, and the whole world is filled with silence, and the silence is like a thin grey mist, ever sifting, sifting, sifting through the stubble of an old cornfield. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Someday by Mary McDougall. Read for LibriVox.org by Newgatenovelist. When New York's towers have tumbled down, and weeds grow rank in the streets of the town, then I'll come with my gypsy children brown, and tell them the strange old tale, how people lived and loved and died in the crowded cells of the City of Pride, while the green hills called and the sea-gulls cried, and the lovely moon hung pale. And then how they suddenly waked one day, and followed their singing dreams away, out to the hills where the green trees sway, and all the world was a flower. And my children's eyes will grow round and bright in the strange old tale in the sunset's light, and will play at hide and seek half the night in the ruins of the Woolworth Tower. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Sonnet of the Moon by Charles Best. Read for LibriVox.org. Look how the pale queen of the silent night doth cause the ocean to attend upon her, and he, as long as she is in his sight, with her full tide is ready her to honour. But when the silver waggon of the moon is mounted up so high he cannot follow, the sea calls home his crystal waves to moan, and with low ebb doth manifest his sorrow. So you that are the sovereign of my heart, have all my joys attending on your will. My joys low ebbing when you do depart, when you return their tide my heart doth fill. So as you come, and as you do depart, joys ebb and flow within my tender heart. End of poem. This poem is in the public domain.
The Sun Has Set by Emily Bronte, read for LibriVox.org by Anna Richardson. The sun has set, and the long grass now waves dreamily in the evening wind, and a wild bird has flown from the old grey stone in some warm nook a couch to find. In all the lonely landscape round I see no light and hear no sound, except the wind that far away comes sighing o'er the healthy sea, End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Tears by Winston. Read for LibriVox.org by LydiaX. High over the hill the moon bark steers. The lantern lights depart. Dead springs are stirring in my heart, and there are tears. But that which makes my grief more deep is that you know not when I weep. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
To the Not Impossible Hymn by Edna St. Vincent Millay. Read for LibriVox.org by PaulClayton. How shall I know unless I go to Cairo and Cathay, whether or not this blessed spot is blessed in every way? Now it may be the flower for me is this beneath my nose. How shall I tell unless I smell the Carthaginian rose? The fabric of my faithful love no power shall dim or ravel, whilst I stay here. But oh, my dear, if I should ever travel. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Village Bells by William Lyle Bowles. Read for LibriVox.org. Who does not love the village bells? Their cheerful peal and solemn toll, one of the rustic wedding tells, and one bespeaks a parting soul. The lark in sunshine sings his song, and dressed in garments white and gay, the village lasses trip along, for this is Susan's wedding day. Ah, gather flowers of sweetest hue, young violets from the bank's green side, and on poor Mary's coffin strew, for in the bloom of life she died. So passes life, the smile, the tear succeed, as in our path we stray. Thy kingdom come, for we are here, as guests who tarry but a day. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
War by Percy Bysshe Shelley. Read for LibriVox.org by Arden. March 31st, 2026. War. Ambition, power, and avarice now have hurled death, fate, and ruin on a bleeding world. See, on yon heath what countless victims lie. Hark, what loud shrieks ascend through yonder sky. Tell then the cause. 'Tis sure the avenger's rage has swept these myriads from life's crowded stage. Hark to that groan, an anguished hero dies. He shudders in death's latest agonies. Yet does a fleeting hectic flush his cheek, yet does his parting breath essay to speak. O God, my wife, my children, monarch thou, for whose support this fainting frame lies low, for whose support in distant lands I bleed, let his friend's welfare be the warrior's meed. He hears me not, ah, no, kings cannot hear, for passion's voice has dulled their listless ear. To thee, then, mighty God, I lift my moan. Thou wilt not scorn a suppliant's anguished groan. Oh, now I die, but still is death's fierce pain. God hears my prayer. We meet again. He spake, reclined him on death's bloody bed, and with a parting groan his spirit fled. Oppressors of mankind, to you we owe the baleful streams from whence these miseries flow. For you, how many a mother weeps her son, snatched from life's course ere half his race was run. For you, how many a widow drops a tear, in silent anguish on her husband's bier. Is it then thine almighty power, she cries, whence tears of endless sorrow dim these eyes? Is this the system which thy powerful sway, which else in shapeless chaos sleeping lay, formed and approved? It cannot be, but oh, forgive me, heaven, my brain is warped by woe. 'Tis not, he never bade the war note swell. He never triumphed in the work of hell. Monarchs of earth, thine is the baleful deed. Thine are the crimes for which thy subjects bleed. Ah, when will come the sacred fated time, when man unsullied by his leader's crime despising wealth, ambition, pomp, and pride, will stretch him fearless by his foeman's side. Ah, when will come the time when o'er the plain no more shall death and desolation reign? When will the sun smile on the bloodless field, and these stern warriors arm the sickle wield? Not whilst some king in cold ambition's dreams plans for the field of death his plotting schemes. Not whilst for private pique the public fall, and one frail mortal's mandate governs all. Swelled with command and mad with dizzying sway, who sees unmoved his myriads fade away, careless who lives or dies, so that he gains some trivial point for which he took the pains. What then are kings? I see the trembling crowd, I hear their fulsome clamors echoed loud. Their stern oppressor pleased appears awhile, but April's sunshine is a monarch's smile. Kings are but dust, the last eventful day will level all and make them lose their sway. Will dash the scepter from the monarch's hand, and from the warrior's grasp wrest thee ensanguined brand. Oh, peace, soft peace, art thou forever gone? Is thy fair form indeed forever flown? And love and concord hast thou swept away, as if incongruous with thy parted sway? Alas, I fear thou hast, for none appear. Now o'er the palsied earth stalks giant fear, with war and woe and terror in his train. Listening he pauses on the embattled plain, then speeding swiftly o'er the ensanguined heath, has left the frightful work to hell and death. See, gory ruin yokes his blood-stained car, he sensed the battle's carnage from afar. Hell and destruction mark his mad career, he tracks the rapid step of hurrying fear, whilst ruined towns and smoking cities tell that thy work, monarch, is the work of hell. It is thy work, I hear a voice repeat, shakes the broad basis of thy blood-stained seat. And at the orphan's sigh, the widow's moan, totters the fabric of thy guilt-stained throne. It is thy work, O monarch. Now the sound, fainter and fainter yet, is borne around. Yet to enthusiast ears the murmurs tell that heaven, indignant at the work of hell, will soon the hated cause remove, which tears from earth peace, innocence, and love. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Where the Mind is Without Fear by Rabindranath Tagore, read for LibriVox.org by Leena Manohar. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Winter Night by Sherr Teasdale. Read for LibriVox.org by PaulClayton. My window pane is starred with frost. The world is bitter cold tonight. The moon is cruel, and the wind is like a two-edged sword to smite. God pity all the homeless ones, the beggars pacing to and fro. God pity all the poor tonight, who walk the lamplit streets of snow. My room is like a bit of June, warm and close-curtained, fold on fold. But somewhere, like a homeless child, my heart is crying in the cold. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Wise unto Salvation by William J. Ellenson. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars for ever and ever. Daniel 12:3. There is an order of intelligence more high, more pure than man has e'er conceived. When the eternal author first resolved to people the dread loneliness of space, then he created beings, glorious, bright, worthy companionship and bliss with him. These are the stars of morning, who for joy sang at the extension of their Father's glory, when they beheld our new created world. It may be some of these have fallen from light. Satan I saw, like lightning, fall from heaven. And he, once bright among the stars of morning, found doubtless at creation's dawn his birth. But those who through the inconceivable lapse of ages have continued until now, from the beginning perfect, even as he who gave them life's benevolent boon is perfect, must be glorious of created beings, of nearest kindred to the fount of glory. These, having never sinned, have never sorrowed, nor known an hour's abatement of their bliss. The will divine has not been hid from them, and quick obedience followed its conception. Thus, with alacrity and eager joy, without a thought of compromise or doubt, but rather with anticipating zeal, his will is done in heaven. Speed, speed the day in thine own time, O thou who canst not err, and make our wills subservient to thine own. To them obedience constitutes delight, and brings its own reward, for it has given to blessed existence still a heightened bliss. Partaking of divine benevolence, their bliss has increased as his kingdom spreads, and beings capable of happiness enlarge creation's catalogue. And thus they sang together, shouting in their joy, when they beheld a world which had become formless and void, created o'er again, and heaven's high architect pronounced it good. And at the ecstasy of their glad songs, all paradise with added rapture thrills, when an immortal leaves his sinfulness, sheds penitent tears, and in humility assumes Christ's easy yoke, and learns of him. His goodness, how adorable, who placed salvation's means within our reach, and gave his angels, blessed already, to rejoice in man's acceptance of his terms of grace. Such are the high intelligences there, and those on earth who most resemble them from kindred sources draw their chiefest joy. They find it in performing heaven's behest. They find it when the flood of gospel light spreads from the frozen north to South Sea isles, from western pagan lands to Moslem shrines. They fain would urge that flood, and speed the day when, as the waters spread o'er ocean's floor, so righteousness shall overflow the earth. There have been holy men in every age, whose chief employ in life has been to turn their fellow men to righteousness. The seer of Ramah, and the shepherd psalmist king, Saul, and the valiant apostolic band, Erasmus, and Melanchthon, Fenelon, Luther, Ihaepmexz, Whitfield, strong in faith, Wesley, Newton, and his brother Bard, Fox, fraught with holy zeal and faith, and nerved with strength from heaven, anointed of the Lord and girded for the combat, who made war with human pride, and held the standard up of the pure primitive gospel, breaking down tradition's holds and error's resting place, and noble in profound humility, leading like teachable children lofty men to learn of him, the meek and lowly one. And many who o'er mountain, vale, and plain preach Christ's unsearchable riches, and proclaim glad tidings of great joy to all mankind. When these shall put on immortality, they shall be added to the firmament. They shall be clustered with the stars which shone from the beginning, and with them shall shine forever and ever. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The Year by Coventry Patmore. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. The crocus, while the days are dark, unfolds its saffron sheen. At April's touch the crudest bark discovers gems of green. Then sleep the seasons full of might, while slowly swells the pod, and rounds the peach, and in the night the mushroom bursts the sod. The winter falls. The frozen rut is bound with silver bars. The snowdrift heaps against the hut, and night is pierced with stars. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.